Chapter 2332. Taking the disc, Ningyu asked hesitantly, "Are you sure you want to give it to me?" It was no wonder that Ningyu found it hard to believe. After all, the disc was a mid-stage Celestial King-level Dharma treasure. After all, even a half-step Celestial King-level warrior might not have a Dharma treasure of this level. Ningyu was shocked that Lord of Heaven Rong gave it to him. "If it weren't for you, I would have been killed by Ming Hao." Lord of Heaven Rong waved his hand and said, "Plus, the disc has recognized its owner. Even if I hold it, I won't be able to use its power." "All right." After hearing Lord of Heaven Rong's explanation, Ningyu had to keep the disc. Whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, Ningyu willed in his mind and released the double-horned demon beast and Ninglu. "I'm going to take it." As soon as he left the red demon sword, Ninglu couldn't help but swear. "Ningyu, how lucky are you?" Ninglu stared at the disc in Ningyu's hand and said in surprise, "You can even get a mid-stage Celestial King-level Dharma treasure." Ningyu rolled his eyes at Ninglu and said, "Go somewhere cool." "Hehe, can you give it to me?" Ninglu chuckled and jogged to Ningyu's side. "Give it to me. I promise I can break through to the Lord of Heaven realm. Get lost." Ningyu kicked Ninglu's butt and said, "You don't even frown when you lie. If Hongmo told me that, I might believe him. But I don't believe you at all." The red demon sword could devour Dharma treasures to level up. And red demon was the sword spirit of the red demon sword. Therefore, if the red demon sword's level increased, red demon's cultivation would also increase. "Fine, I won't give it to you. Stingy." Ninglu patted his butt, and then said seriously, "Where are we going next?" "You killed Chen Lingkong and those violet 5 tigers. I'm sure they won't let you off. In my opinion, we should hurry. I think we should leave as soon as possible. It's useless." Rong Tianjun shook his head and said, "Marvelous mathematician." Puff. Before he could finish his words, Rong Tianjun felt something sweet in his throat, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His face became extremely pale. "What happened?" Ningyu asked hurriedly. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Heavenly Monarch Rong said in a deep voice, "Heavenly Monarch Du contacted me through a secret technique of the Immortal Court. He asked me to meet up with him in the Zilan Weave." Otherwise, Rong Tianjun did not finish his sentence. However, Ningyu knew it very well. Obviously, Du Tianjun had sensed something. "It seems I have to go to the Violet Orchid Weave." Ningyu took a deep breath and said coldly, "I'd like to see how powerful Heavenly Monarch Du and the others are." Whoosh. The next moment, Ningyu's body flickered as he flew directly towards the Violet Orchid Weave. Rong Tianjun and Ninglu looked at each other and saw a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. The Violet Orchid We've had at least 3 peak Heavenly Monarchs. Among them, Heavenly Monarch Du from the Immortal Court was especially powerful. This trip to the Violet Orchid Weave was bound to be a disaster. The Violet Orchid Weave was a super weave. The capital of the Violet Orchid Weave was called Violet Orchid City. Compared to Kuanshu City, Violet Orchid City was much larger. Among the super weaves, Kuanshu could only be ranked below average. But the Violet Orchid Weave could be ranked in the top 10, at this moment. In a grand palace in the center of Violet Orchid City, there were 3 martial artists in the palace. If Ming Hao was here, he would have noticed that he had seen all 3 of them before. Marvelous Mathematician, Thunder Elixir King, Heavenly Monarch Du. Crack. How dare they? Heavenly Monarch Du raised his right hand and smashed the sandalwood table and chair beside him. He said coldly, "Marvelous Mathematician, tell me who killed Chen Lingkong. Was it that useless Rong Hao?" Swoosh. Marvelous Mathematician took out a tortoise shell and tossed it into the air. He waved his hands, and 2 rays of cold light shot out of his sleeves and entered the tortoise shell. Crack. Crack. Not long after, 3 fine cracks appeared on the tortoise shell. Crack. The cracks disappeared as quickly as they appeared. In the blink of an eye, the cracks closed up. At this time, 2 golden words appeared on the back of the tortoise shell. Ningyu. Looking at the 2 words on the tortoise shell, Heavenly Monarch Du's face was extremely cold. He had thought that Qian Lingkong's death had something to do with Rong Hao and had used a secret technique to contact him. He believed that Rong Hao would come to the Violet Orchid Weave soon. Who would have thought? The culprit was not Rong Hao, but someone called Ning Yu. Rong Hao cannot escape the responsibility of Qian Lingkong's death. Marvelous mathematician put away the tortoise shell and said in a low voice, "If I'm not wrong, when Ning Yu killed Qian Lingkong, he used the heaven-reaching disc." The heaven-reaching disc. Hearing this, Heavenly Monarch Du's face changed. He was from the immortal court, so he naturally knew what the heaven-reaching disc was. The national treasure of Rong Hao's celestial kingdom was the heaven-reaching disc. Send people to chase them to the Violet Orchid Weave. Heavenly Monarch Du said coldly. No need. Marvelous mathematician waved his hand and said, "They have already reached the Violet Orchid Weave." Reached the Violet Orchid Weave? Heavenly Monarch Du was slightly stunned. Clearly, he did not expect that Rong Hao and Ning Yu would dare to enter the tiger's den. That's good. Let them have a look around the Violet Orchid Weave first. Heavenly Monarch Du regained his composure and said calmly, "Marvelous mathematician, seal off the Violet Orchid Weave. Thunder Pellet King and I will refine this immortal king pill first." No problem. Marvelous mathematician stepped onto the ground and immediately left the hall. In order to refine the immortal king pill, they had expended a great deal of energy and resources. Now that the immortal king pill was about to be refined, Heavenly Monarch Du and Thunder Pellet King would definitely not give up for nothing. In Heavenly Monarch Du's opinion, with Marvelous mathematician and the many heavenly monarchs in the Violet Orchid Weave, capturing Ning Yu and Rong Hao should not be a problem. After all, the Violet Orchid Weave was one of the top 10 superweaves, and there were many heavenly monarchs in its own weave. With Marvelous mathematician leading the way and these native heavenly monarchs. Even if Ning Yu used the heaven-reaching disc to kill Qian Lingkong, it would be difficult for him to gain the upper hand against Marvelous mathematician and the others. After Marvelous mathematician left, Heavenly Monarch Du turned to look at Thunder Pellet King and asked in a low voice, "How much longer until the immortal king pill is refined?" 3 hours. Thunder Pellet King slapped the huge cauldron in front of him and said without turning his head, "During this time, no one can disturb us, or all our efforts will be in vain. Don't worry, with me on guard, no one can come in and disturb you." Chapter 2333. Russell. At the same time, at the entrance of Zealand City, a group of 5 martial artists appeared. These 5 martial artists were none other than Ning Yu, Rong Hao, Ming Hao, the twin-horned beast and Ning Lu. Rather than waiting for death, it was better to take the initiative. Furthermore, the sky-reaching disc was a mid-stage immortal king-level magic treasure, plus the white bead Ning Yu had, the terrifying energy in his sea of consciousness, and the cultivation of a half-step Lord of Heaven. With so many trump cards, Ning Yu was confident that he could fight a real half-step immortal king, and after staying outside the city gate for too long, Ning Yu and Rong Hao went straight into Zealand City. Why is no one coming to cause trouble for us? The twin-horned beast looked around and found it strange that no one was coming. Logically speaking, since Du Tianjun had threatened Rong Hao, then they must have known that they were coming to Zealand City. Under such circumstances, no one came to cause trouble. The twin-horned beast was naturally puzzled. Isn't it good that no one came? Ning Yu rolled his eyes and said, "Let's find a place to rest first." According to Ning Yu's guess, no one came to welcome them, which meant that Du Tianjun and the others were in trouble. No matter what, Ning Yu felt that finding a place to stay was the most important thing. As for when Du Tianjun would come, there was no need to think about it for now. Different situations call for different actions. Ning Yu wasn't afraid of Du Tianjun and the others. What Ning Yu didn't know was that, in fact, they had been targeted by Marvelous Mathematician the moment they entered Zealand City. Originally, Marvelous Mathematician had planned to take down Ning Yu immediately, but when he felt the terrifying aura coming from Ning Yu, he immediately chose to stop and hide in the void to observe quietly. There are at least 3 auras that make my heart palpitate. Marvelous Mathematician's face was solemn. At this time, he finally understood why Qian Lingkong was killed. In a one-on-one fight, even he wasn't absolutely sure that he could defeat Ning Yu. Even if all the heavenly lords of Zealand territory came together, it would be difficult to win. There was no other reason. The man behind Ning Yu was also at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. Furthermore, he sensed a trace of the heavenly demon's aura on that man. It was highly likely that the man was a heavenly demon. How could Rong Hao collude with the sky demon? Frowning, Master God Diviner looked over at Rong Hao. Rong Hao was someone from the Immortal Court. Logically speaking, when the people of the Immortal Court saw the heavenly demons, their first thought would be to kill them. It was absolutely impossible for them to associate with the heavenly demons. Why didn't Rong Hao have the slightest intention of making a move? You two, go and probe them out. After thinking for a while, Marvelous Mathematician pointed at the two mid-stage Heavenly Monarch realm martial artists and said, if possible, you'd better fight with that man. Understood. Without any delay, the two mid-stage Heavenly Lords who had been selected by the clairvoyant diviner tore through the void and rushed out. Their target wasn't Ning Yu or Rong Hao, but Ming Hao. Master Godly Mathematician had asked them to test Ming Hao, so how could they dare to refuse? Whoosh, whoosh. They were so fast that they arrived in front of Ming Hao in the blink of an eye. They clenched their right fists and punched out. Humph. At the critical moment, Ning Yu snorted coldly and casually threw two punches. Crack, crack. Ning Yu's attack was ruthless, and he didn't hold back at all. Two crisp sounds rang out consecutively. The two middle-stage Heavenly Monarch realm martial artists were sent flying backwards like kites with broken strings. Finally can't take it anymore. After pushing back the two mid-stage Heavenly Lords, Ning Yu's eyes slowly moved to the sky. In fact, if the two mid-stage Heavenly Lords had not made a move, Ning Yu really wouldn't have noticed anything. The spatial ripples caused by their attacks allowed Ning Yu to instantly locate them. He sorted out his thoughts. Ning Yu moved to the front of the two mid-stage Heavenly Lords and said indifferently, "Why did you attack me for no reason? This is Zealand City, and we are the family heads of the Sun family and the Wu family. How dare you go against us? Aren't you afraid that our patriarch will attack you?" The mid-stage Heavenly Lords calmed down quickly. The family head of the Sun family looked at Ning Yu coldly and said fiercely, "Our patriarch is at the peak of the late-stage Heavenly Lord." Wu family head said coldly, "Our patriarch is also at the peak of the late-stage Heavenly Lord." Puff. Hearing the threats from the family heads of the Sun and Wu families, Ning Yu couldn't help but laugh. Even if they were at the peak of the late-stage Heavenly Lord, he wouldn't need to spend too much energy to kill them. "What are you laughing at?" The family head of the Sun family said in a low voice, "I'll inform the patriarch and ask him to come and teach you a lesson." Puff. However, before the family head of the Sun family could finish his words, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. No one knew when. Ning Yu had already arrived in front of him and stretched out his hand to slap his cheek. Slap, slap, slap. Crisp sounds came from the family head of the Sun family's face. After a while, Ning Yu withdrew his palm and complained, "You're really thick-skinned. My hand hurts a little." Puff. She was slapped by Ning Yu in public and ridiculed to the extreme. The family head of the Sun family was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood. "I'm going to grind your bones into ashes." The family head of the Sun family was so angry that he said with a ferocious face, "If you offend the Sun family, you'll be." Puff. However, before the family head of the Sun family could finish his words, he felt his body lighten and flew backward. "Who do you think you are to talk to me like this?" Ning Yu chased after him and raised his right foot, stepping heavily on the chest of the family head of the Sun family. Crack, crack, crack. Ning Yu's foot was extremely powerful. Several of the family head of the Sun family's ribs were broken by Ning Yu on the spot. "Don't go too far." Seeing the family head of the Sun family's miserable state, the family head of the Wu family's face was extremely cold. He first looked back at the sky, then turned to stare at Ning Yu and said fiercely, "This is the Purple Orchid City, not." Puff. The result was the same. The family head of the Wu family's ribs were broken. However, it was not Ning Yu who attacked this time, but Ming Hao. He really is a heavenly demon. In the sky, the marvelous mathematician's face turned a little pale. To find out if Ming Hao was a heavenly demon, He had lost 2 mid-stage Lord Heavenly Realm martial artists at once. This price was too high. Today is not a good day. The marvelous mathematician quickly took out his turtle shell and did some calculations. Then, he made a prompt decision to go back first. He could feel it. Ming Hao was at the peak of the heavenly monarch realm, and the strength that Ning Yu had displayed was equally terrifying. Given his current condition, it was basically impossible for him to defeat Ning Yu and the others. The plan now was not to charge forward, but to return to where Du Tianjun and the Thunder Elixir King were. The marvelous mathematician was known for his flawless calculations. According to his calculations, the Thunder Elixir King would be able to refine the immortal King Elixir in 3 hours. Chapter 2334. Swoosh. Master Godly Diviner left without hesitation. Almost in an instant, he disappeared. As for the native heavenly lords of Violet City, they all retreated, just like Master Godly Diviner. They had come here on Master Godly Diviner's orders. Now that Master Godly Diviner had chosen to leave, why would they stay? Furthermore, the fact that Ning Yu could defeat the head of the Sun family with a single move was enough to show how strong he was. They were all early-stage or mid-stage heavenly lords. Even if they went against Ning Yu, it would be difficult for them to win. Instead of that, they might as well go back to their own homes. Let's go and find a place to stay. Sweeping a glance at the Sun family's and Wu family's patriarchs, Ning Yu moved his feet and walked forward. The reason why Ning Yu didn't kill them was because he had his own considerations. No matter if it was the Sun clan or the Wu clan, they were the top clans in Violet Orchid City. If the head of such a family was bullied, they would definitely send someone to take revenge. What Ning Yu needed to do was to find a place and wait for the experts of the Sun family and the Wu family to arrive. The fact that the Sun family and the Wu family were able to stand tall in Violet City for so long meant that they had their own strengths. Ming Hao, Rong Hao, and the others followed closely after Ning Yu. The Pleasant Arrival restaurant was located in the most prosperous area of the Violet Orchid Weave. It had 8 floors. To enter the Pleasant Arrival restaurant, one didn't just need money. One also needed to have the appropriate status. Rustle, rustle, rustle. At the same time, in front of the entrance of the Pleasant Arrival restaurant, Ning Yu stopped, looked up and said, "Let's do it here." As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Yu walked straight to the restaurant. Halt. However, Ning Yu hadn't even stepped foot into the restaurant when he was stopped by an attendant at the peak of the Saint Immortal realm. "Please show me your identity." The peak stage Saint Immortal servant extended his right hand and blocked Ning Yu's way. Boom. Without waiting for the waiter to finish speaking, Ning Yu's aura suddenly surged out and pressed down on the waiter. Ning Yu was not a hothead. Generally speaking, for a high-class restaurant like this, the conditions to enter were more stringent. He was either a high official or a noble, or had a high cultivation base. It was Ning Yu's first time in Zealand City, so he didn't have much of a relationship with the officials and nobles. He could only slightly display his strength and rely on his own strength to obtain the qualifications to enter. Hiss. As expected. Sensing the aura exuded from Ning Yu, the manservant could not help but gasp. He immediately changed his words and said respectfully, "Sirs, please come in." Whoosh. At the same time, on the 7th floor of the Yulai restaurant, in the Supreme Private Room number 3, there were a total of 4 martial artists in the private room. If Ning Yu was here, he would have noticed that he knew 2 of them. The head of the Sun family and the head of the Wu family. As for the other 2 elders, they were the Sun family's ancestor and the Wu family's ancestor, Pa. Among them, the head of the Sun family slapped the windowsill and stared at Ning Yu, who was in front of the main entrance of the Yulai restaurant. He said in a deep voice, "Ancestor, it's them. Please help me." The Sun family's ancestor moved his feet and went straight to the window. He followed the gaze of the Sun family's ancestor, Pa. As soon as he saw Ning Yu, the Sun family's ancestor turned to look at the Sun family's ancestor. He raised his right hand and slapped down fiercely. A crisp sound rang out. The Sun family's ancestor was spun a few times by this slap before he stabilized his body. "Ancestor, why did you hit me?" The Sun family's ancestor opened his mouth slightly and his face was full of confusion. He did not expect this to be the result. One had to know. He invited the ancestor to come with the purpose of arresting Ningyu and taking revenge for him. But now, not only did the ancestor not help him, but he also colluded with Ningyu and gave him a slap. Trash. The Sun family's ancestor's face was cold and he said in a deep voice, "Have you been kicked in the head by a donkey? That young man is not simple. Even I may not be a match for him. How dare you go against him? Have you been blinded by lard? Ancestor, it's not my fault." The Sun family's ancestor cried, "It's all because of Marvelous Mathematician. You also know that Marvelous Mathematician is very close to Du Tianjun, and he is also extremely powerful. He summoned all the Lord of Heaven experts in the entire Zealand city. He just happened to choose me and Wu Yong. Don't talk nonsense with me." The Sun family's ancestor kicked the Sun family's ancestor in the butt and said coldly, "Go and invite them here immediately. I will personally apologize. There's no need, right?" At this time, the Wu family's ancestor, Wu Yong, frowned slightly and said, "They offended Marvelous Mathematician. With his character, he will definitely not let them go. If we apologize to him now, isn't it equivalent to standing on the opposite side of Marvelous Mathematician? Marvelous Mathematician, Thunder Elixir King, Du Tianjun, Chen Lingkong. These were the four-peak Lord of Heaven experts of Zealand City. Because Du Tianjun came from the Immortal Court, they were extremely domineering and oppressed the native Lord of Zealand City. Going against Marvelous Mathematician? Wu Yong didn't have the guts for now. Idiot. The Sun family's ancestor said coldly, "Do you know why I and Wu He came out of seclusion?" Wu Yong was startled and turned to look at the Wu family's ancestor, Wu He, with a puzzled expression. "Sun Xingye is right. You and Sun too go invite them here. We have our own arrangements." Wu He waved his hand, indicating that Wu Yong shouldn't ask so many questions for now and go invite Ningyu and the others here first. All right. Helpless, Wu Yong and Sun Tu could only leave the number 3 box obediently and go to the first floor. Welcome. In the lobby. As soon as Ningyu and Rong Hao came in, a servant in green clothes came to greet them. The green-robed manservant seemed to know Ningyu's strength, so he took the initiative to explain, "The Pleasant Arrival restaurant has a total of 8 floors. Among them, the first 4 floors are open to Saint Immortal Realm martial artists, while the last 4 floors require Heavenly Monarch Realm cultivation to enter." "What's the difference?" Ningyu asked. "There is a big difference." The servant smiled. "The first 4 floors have less dense immortal qi. 1 day of cultivation in there is equivalent to a month outside. The last 4 floors are not simple. 1 day of cultivation in there is equivalent to a year outside. Of course, the price is also very different." Ningyu didn't expect the Pleasant Arrival restaurant to be so special. He wanted to come here to rest, but since the immortal qi in the Pleasant Arrival restaurant was very dense, he might as well choose the 8th floor and cultivate. The path of cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't move forward, you will fall behind. Not long after, he would have to fight with the Marvelous Mathematician and the others. As the saying went, sharpening a spear at the last moment was not fast, but it was also good. Ningyu wouldn't miss the opportunity to improve his strength. The 8th floor. Ningyu took out a space ring from his bosom and was about to hand it to the green-robed servant. "Ha, enter the 8th floor? What a bumpkin. Can anyone enter the 8th floor?" Chapter 2335. Swoosh. Ningyu put away the spatial ring and looked in the direction of the sound. He saw a group of 3 to 4 young martial artists walking toward the entrance of the Pleasant Arrival restaurant. Early stage Heavenly Lord. The cultivation of these young martial artists was not very high. The tallest among them was a crew-cut man who was only an early stage Heavenly Lord. As for the other 3 young martial artists, their cultivation ranged from early stage to late stage Saint Immortal. Rustle. Not long after, the man with the flat-top haircut stood in front of Ningyu and said with his nose in the air, "How can the 8th floor be entered by just anyone? You should take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror if you want to enter the 8th floor. You." The double-horned demonic beast was enraged. "Heh!" The crew-cut man raised his eyebrows and looked at the demonic beast sinisterly. "You're just a peak-stage Saint Immortal demonic beast. If you dare to behave atrociously in front of me again, I'll break your horn and make soup out of it. You're courting death." The double-horned demonic beast's figure flashed and he charged out. This was too much. No, it was too much. He had never been bullied like this ever since he followed Rong Hao out of the Immortal Lyceum. "You're overestimating yourself." The crew-cut man smirked as he looked at the double-horned demonic beast that was charging at him. He clenched his right fist and suddenly punched out. Bang! In an instant, the crew-cut man's fist landed on the demonic beast's chest. The enormous force caused the twin-horned demonic beast to fly back several meters before coming to a stop. "Not bad. You can actually block a punch with 30% of my strength." The crew-cut man shrugged and said indifferently, "Let me give you a piece of advice. If you know what's good for you, get lost. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that something unpleasant will happen." With that said, the crew-cut man walked toward the second floor without looking back. Swoosh! At this moment, Ningyu moved quickly and appeared in front of the crew-cut man in the blink of an eye, blocking his way. "You have to leave something behind after beating someone up." Ningyu's expression was indifferent and emotionless. Are you sure you're talking to me?" The man with the flat top pointed at his nose and said, "Do you know who my father is?" "My father is the patriarch of the Wangs of the Zilan Weave. You're doomed to suffer for offending me. Huala." The words of the flat-top man immediately caused a great uproar in the main hall of the Pleasant Arrival restaurant. The Wangs. This was one of the most powerful clans in the Violet Orchid Weave. The family head, Wang Lihan, was a mid-stage Heavenly Monarch realm expert. In Violet Orchid City, offending other families, even if they were more terrifying than the Wangs, would give them a chance to live. However, once they offended the Wangs, only death awaited them. "I don't care if you are from the Wangs or the Zhaos. In short, since you injured my friend, you will have to leave your arms behind." Ningyu didn't care about a mere Wangs. Not to mention the head of the Wangs. Even if Master Godly Diviner came, Ningyu would make the crew-cut man pay the price. "I'd like to see how you are going to leave my arms behind today." The crew-cut man stretched out his hands and placed them in front of Ningyu's eyes. "Cut off my arms if you can. If you don't, you won't." Crack. Crack. Before the crew-cut man could finish his words, Ningyu stretched out his right hand and slashed at his arms. 2 consecutive cracking sounds rang out. The crew-cut man's arms fell to the ground at the same time. You. The crew-cut man didn't expect Ningyu to be so ruthless as to cut off his arms on the spot. "You're finished. No one in this world can save you." The crew-cut man let out a hysterical roar. "Stop shouting." Ningyu rolled his eyes and said, "I thought you were powerful. It turns out that you're just a wax figure with a silver spear. You look good, but you're useless." Through this fight, Ningyu roughly estimated the cultivation level of the crew-cut man. He was not at the early stage of Lord of Heaven, but at the peak of Saint Immortal. The reason why the crew-cut man exuded an aura of early-stage Lord of Heaven was that he had left behind a middle-stage Lord of Heaven in his cuffs. The double-horned demonic beast was defeated by him because of the 2 tricks in his cuffs. Otherwise, how could the double-horned demonic beast, which was ranked at the top of the Lord of Heaven substitute list, be defeated in one move? Gulp. Seeing Ningyu cut off the crew-cut man's arms, the green-clothed manservant couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. To be honest, when Ningyu said he was going to enter the 8th floor, he looked down on him and thought Ningyu was bragging. After all, if one wanted to enter the 8th floor, not only would he have to pay a large number of heavenly elixirs, his cultivation level would also have to reach the terrifying peak of Lord of Heaven. But seeing Ningyu defeat the crew-cut man mercilessly, the green-clothed manservant finally came to his senses. These people in front of him were not easy to deal with. Taking a deep breath and forcing himself to calm down, the green-clothed manservant said to Ningyu, "The conditions to enter the 8th floor are 1,000 heavenly elixirs and your cultivation level must reach the peak of Lord of Heaven." "No problem. Ningyu took out a space ring and threw it to the green-clothed manservant. After killing Qian Lingkong, Ningyu obtained a lot of heavenly elixirs from him. Ningyu could even take out 10,000 heavenly elixirs, let alone 1,000 heavenly elixirs. Courting death. Just as Ningyu handed over the heavenly elixirs, an old man tore through the void and dashed towards him. As the old man charged, he said coldly, "How dare you hurt my only son? I think you must be tired of living. It's the family head of the Wangs, Wang Lihan. They are in danger this time. Even Wang Lihan has taken the initiative to attack. It seems like they are going to die. Sigh, who asked them to be so blind as to provoke Wang Lihan's only son? That's right. They deserve it. They deserve to die." When the martial artists in the hall saw Wang Lihan, they began to discuss. However, they did not think highly of Ningyu and thought that Ningyu and the rest would definitely die. Offending Wang Lihan was no different from courting death. Swoosh, swoosh. In a split second, two figures dashed out from the top of the restaurant. Bang, bang. The target of these two figures was not Ningyu, but Wang Lihan. Two kicks landed on Wang Lihan's chest and back. Fart. Fresh blood spurted out. Wang Lihan lay on the ground like a dead dog, his face extremely pale. Who is it? Who saved them? Sun family head, Sun Tu, Wu family head, Wu Yong. Why did they help these people? Sun Tu and Wu Yong's attack had the crowd discussing. Except for them. Even Ningyu and Rong Hao were surprised. One should know. Not long ago, on the streets of Violet City, Sun Tu and Wu Yong were defeated by Ningyu and Ming Hao. At that time, they could only return to their families after Ningyu and the rest had left. But now, why did they help Ningyu? Chapter 2336. Sun Tu, Wu Yong. Wang Lihan struggled to stand up from the ground. He wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth and said, "The Wangs have always minded their own business. Why did you attack me? Who said that we can't attack you just because we mind our own business?" Sun Tu said coldly, "In this world, the strong rule. If we want to attack you, we can. If you don't agree, you can fight back." You. Wang Lihan was so angry that his nose was crooked. Fight back. Not to mention that he couldn't defeat Sun Tu. Even if he could, he wouldn't dare to go head-on with Sun Tu. There was no other reason. In Zealand City, the Sun family was much more powerful than the Wangs. If they offended the Sun family, the Wangs were destined to suffer. "Let's go." Wang Lihan's face was gloomy. He then said to the youth with a crew cut, "Let's not stay here and be an eyesore." Swish. However, before Wang Lihan could leave with the youth with the crew cut, Sun Tu's figure flashed and stood in front of him. "Did I say you can leave?" Sun Tu looked at Wang Liang coldly and said, "You can leave, but you have to get Ningyu's forgiveness." Ningyu's forgiveness? Hearing Sun Tu's words, all the martial artists in the hall shifted their attention to Ningyu. Who was Ningyu? Sun Tu and Wu Yong were the family heads of the Sun family and Wu family respectively. In Zealand City, there were only a few people who could invite both of them at the same time. The aura that Ningyu emitted wasn't at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. Could it be that Ningyu had a backer? Damn it. Wang Lihan couldn't help but curse. Ningyu injured his only son, and now Sun Tu wanted him to plead with Ningyu. This was intolerable. Wang Lihan took a step forward and said coldly, "Sun Tu, don't think I'm afraid of you." Sun Tu ignored Wang Lihan. Instead, he looked at Ningyu and asked, "How do we resolve this matter?" "Whatever they want to do to me, you'll do to them." Ningyu appeared to be quite calm as he said indifferently. At first. When Sun Tu and Wu Yong appeared, Ningyu was a little puzzled. He had no idea what they were up to. But when he noticed that there were two strands of perception on the 7th floor of the Pleasant Arrival restaurant that had noticed him, he came to a complete understanding. The ancestors of the Sun family and the Wu family wanted to express their goodwill through this method. Since they had chosen to be friendly, Ningyu decided to wait and see what they were up to. Understood. Sun Tu and Wu Yong glanced at each other before moving in unison. Whoosh, whoosh. The two of them were very fast. In the blink of an eye, They arrived in front of Wang Lihan. He clenched his right fist and punched out. Damn it! Wang Lihan could not help but curse when he saw Sun Tu and Wu Yong attacking him together. However, although he cursed, Wang Lihan did not dare to be careless. Facing two experts of the same cultivation level, Wang Lihan immediately displayed his absolute trump card. Crack, crack. Unfortunately, Sun Tu and Wu Yong also displayed their trump cards. Two consecutive crisp sounds rang out. Like a kite with its string cut, Wang Lihan was sent flying backwards. Wang Lihan did not stop until he hit the ground. Lowering his head to look at his broken fist, Wang Lihan's heart sank to the bottom. He thought that Sun Tu and Wu Yong would choose to hold back. Who would have thought that both of them would use their absolute trump cards? He was not a match for them one-on-one, let alone one against two. Die. After succeeding in his first move, Sun Tu immediately launched a second attack. The true energy in his body gathered on his fist. Sun Tu punched at Wang Lihan's head. Whoosh. On the other side, Wu Yong launched an attack at Wang Lihan's son, the youth with a crew cut. Boom. Boom. Almost at the same time, Wang Lihan and the youth with a crew cut died tragically. Hiss. The death of Wang Lihan and the youth with a crew cut made all the martial artists in the area gasp. They were very clear. Wang Lihan's death meant that the Sun and Wu families had officially declared war on the Wangs. After all, Wang Lihan was the family head of the Wangs. If the family head could be killed, then the Wangs would lose their foothold in the Violet Orchid City. Ningyu, our Laozu invites you to come. In killing Wang Lihan, Sun Tu seemed to have done something insignificant. He went straight to Ningyu and said, I wonder if you can do me the honor. Lead the way. Ningyu did not reject and said directly, Sure. After getting Ningyu's affirmation, Sun Tu and Wu Yong hurried to the second floor of Yu Lai restaurant. As for Ningyu, Rong Hao, and the rest, they followed closely behind. Hey, does anyone know that Ningyu? Who the hell is he? I'm not sure. He doesn't seem to be from the Violet Orchid City. Me. Ignorant and ill-informed. A martial artist at the peak of the Saint Immortal realm snorted coldly and said in a deep voice, even Ningyu doesn't know about it. Not long ago, Ningyu defeated Sun Tu and Wu Yong in a domineering manner and beat them up so badly. What? Hearing the words of this martial artist at the peak of the Saint Immortal stage, the surrounding onlookers were shocked. The incident that happened not long ago did not spread due to the fact that the Sun and Wu families had kept it under wraps. If this martial artist at the peak of the Saint Immortal stage was not present, he would probably not know about it. The people in the main hall exclaimed. Ningyu did not know about it. However, even if Ningyu knew about it, he would just laugh it off. There would be onlookers everywhere. The chatter of the onlookers had nothing to do with him. Dong dong. Not long after, Ningyu, Sun Tu, and the rest arrived at the door of the No. 3 Supreme Room on the 7th floor of the Yu Lai restaurant. Sun Tu knocked on the door and said, Old ancestor, Ningyu is here. Creak. As Sun Tu's words fell, the door of the number 3 Supreme Room opened slowly from the inside. As soon as the door was opened, Ningyu saw 2 old men appearing in his sight. Peak stage Heavenly Lord. Seeing the old men, Ningyu could not help but frown. Sun Tu and Wu Yong previously said that their old ancestor was at the peak of the late-stage Heavenly Lord. However, it seemed that Sun Tu and Wu Yong had lied. Or rather, even Sun Tu and Wu Yong did not know the true cultivation of their old ancestor. Not simple. While Ningyu was sizing up Sun Xingye and Wu He, they were also sizing up Ningyu. Especially when they sensed the faint aura on Ningyu's body, Sun Xingye and Wu He looked at each other and saw a hint of seriousness in each other's eyes. At this moment, there were only 3 words in their minds. They had made the right bet. Ningyu was indeed not simple. Moreover, apart from Ningyu, the 2 men behind Ningyu were not simple either. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Sun Xingye, the old ancestor of the Sun clan. Chapter 2337. Are you going to discuss something important with me here? Ningyu didn't ask anything, but shrugged his shoulders. Pa. Sun Xingye slapped his head and said, "Look at my bad memory. Please come in." Saying this, Sun Xingye moved aside and led Ningyu and the rest into the private room. Creak. After closing the door, Sun Xingye took out a scroll and tossed it into the air. Whoosh. The scroll cracked open. 4 beams of light burst out and stood at the 4 corners of the room. A soundproof formation. The scroll that Sun Xingye took out was called a soundproof scroll. After activating it, it would form a soundproof formation around the room. Unless the other party's cultivation was higher than Sun Xingye's, they would not be able to hear the conversation inside. You're quite thoughtful. Ningyu found a chair and sat down. Rong Hao, Ming Hao, the double-horned beast, and Ning Lu found their own chairs and sat down. Hihi, it's better to be safe. Sun Xingye smiled and signaled Sun Tu and Wu Yong with his eyes. Sun Tu and Wu Yong understood and immediately left the private room, choosing to stand guard outside the private room. I've called you here to discuss how to deal with the marvelous mathematician. Sun Xingye did not beat around the bush. He went straight to the point and said, I've learned that you've killed Qian Lingkong through a special channel. Knowing the marvelous mathematician and the others, they will not let you go. Special channel? Ningyu frowned. Ningyu was not too interested in the cooperation that Sun Xingye had mentioned. After all, with his current strength, unless one of the marvelous mathematician and the others had reached the half-step immortal king realm, he would have the absolute advantage. On the contrary, Ningyu was very interested in the special channel that Sun Xingye mentioned. After all, apart from the few people present, only the marvelous mathematician's faction knew that he had killed Qian Lingkong. If Sun Xingye was able to obtain such confidential information, didn't that mean that he was in contact with the marvelous mathematician's faction? I don't think I need to tell you that. At the side, Wu He said indifferently. Let's go. Ningyu stood up on the spot and walked outside. Wu He's overbearing attitude made Ningyu very unhappy. You came to me to discuss some matters, but you used this kind of attitude, as if you were arrogant. Don't. Seeing that Ningyu was about to leave, Sun Xingye hurriedly said. If you leave, don't ever come back. Wu He waved his hand and interrupted Sun Xingye's words. He turned to Ningyu and said solemnly, I have received reliable news that the Thunder Pill King is currently concocting the Immortal King Pill. Once the Immortal King Pill is successfully concocted, there's an 80% to 90% chance that Du Tianjun will attempt to break through to the Immortal King realm. Although this place isn't the Immortal Court and can't accommodate Immortal King experts, with Heavenly Monarch Du's ability, he can completely suppress his cultivation base to the half-step Immortal King realm. Even a half-step Immortal King shouldn't have too much of a problem dealing with you. Sure. Ningyu stopped. He turned around and looked at Wu He. Thank you for the reminder. You. Ningyu's indifferent attitude infuriated Wu He. He snorted coldly and said sinisterly, You really don't know what's good for you. You think that you can do whatever you want after killing Qian Lingkong. To tell you the truth, Qian Lingkong is the weakest among the 4. Even if I were to fight him, I could win easily, right? So what? Ningyu said calmly. Looks like you won't cry if I don't supervise you. Fine, I'll show you what I'm made of. Wu He's face turned cold. He immediately stomped on the ground and dashed out. Swoosh. Wu He arrived in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. He clenched his right fist and punched towards Ningyu's head. It was obvious. The power of Wu He's punch was extremely strong. Looking at Wu He who was dashing towards him, Ningyu stood on the spot with an indifferent expression. Bang! The instant Wu He arrived in front of him, Ningyu clenched his right fist and punched out. It was accompanied by a muffled sound. A figure was sent flying backward like a kite with a broken string. Wu He. Obviously. The figure that flew backwards wasn't Ningyu, but Wu He. Fart. Wu He spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. His face became extremely pale and bloodless. How can you be so strong? Wu He stared at Ningyu in horror and said, Not long ago, when you killed Qian Lingkong, you could only fight evenly with him. You even had to borrow the Immortal King level disc to kill him. How come only a few hours have passed and you've become so powerful? Your strength has increased to such a level. Ningyu snorted coldly. He stared fixedly at Wu He and said coldly, "You seem to know everything about me. So what if I do?" Wu He wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth and said angrily, "Tell me, how did you know about it? Tell me honestly," Yi Zichen said. Ningyu's aura suddenly erupted and pressed towards Wu He. There must be something wrong with this abnormal situation. Ningyu didn't believe that Wu He and the others really wanted to cooperate with him. Since they were so clear about their own affairs, it meant that there was definitely someone instructing them from behind the scenes. It was imperative to find out who was behind Wu He and the others. Creak. However, as soon as Ningyu's aura was released, the door of the number 3 box slowly opened from the outside. Then, a man in blue robes walked straight in. The man in blue stopped in front of Ningyu and said calmly, "Wu He and Sun Xingye are my people. Can you give me some face? Peak of Lord of Heaven." Seeing the man in blue, Ningyu put away his contempt and his expression became extremely serious. The man in blue was at the peak of Lord of Heaven, different from Sun Xingye and Wu He. In other words, even if Sun Xingye and Wu He joined forces, they would definitely not be a match for the man in blue. Against Sun Xingye and the others, the man in blue might only need to use 10% or 20% of his strength to win easily. It was obvious. The overall strength of the man in blue was even stronger than the marvelous mathematician who had been hiding in the void not long ago. Let me introduce myself first. I am Tai Feng, the City Lord of Violet City. The man in blue smiled at Ningyu and said, "I asked Sun Xingye and the others to invite you here for a simple reason. I want to join forces with you to deal with the marvelous mathematician and the others. I really want to know why you know so much about me." Ningyu asked. "That's simple." Tai Feng took out a bronze mirror and a strand of hair and placed it on the bronze mirror. Buzz. As soon as the hair was placed on the bronze mirror, an image appeared on the surface of the mirror. It was the scene of Ningyu and Qian Lingkong fighting. 3 realms divine mirror. Seeing the image on the bronze mirror, Ronghao's eyes widened and his face was full of disbelief. Staring at Tai Feng, Ronghao said in horror, "You are from the Ironwood tribe." Chapter 2338. Just say it. How do you want to cooperate? Ningyu waved his hand and said lightly. He didn't know much about the Ironwood race, nor did he want to. After all, his enemies were the marvelous mathematician and the Thunder Pellet King, not the Ironwood race. Straightforward. Tai Feng smiled. The cooperation is simple. When the Thunder Pellet King succeeds in refining the Immortal King Elixir, we will attack together and snatch the Immortal King Elixir. Without the Immortal King Elixir, Heavenly Monarch Du and the others are no longer a threat. Let's go. Ningyu stood up and walked out of the room. Since Tai Feng didn't have any sincerity, there was no need for him to stay. If he wanted to cooperate, he would have to act like he was cooperating. Otherwise, who would be willing to cooperate if he only wanted others to help but didn't want to do anything himself? Ningyu. Seeing that Ningyu was about to leave, Ronghao quickly stopped him and said in a low voice, "The Ironwood race is a mysterious race in the Immortal Court. It is rumored that they have a special spring water, the Ironwood Divine Spring. Any Heaven Monarch expert who takes the Ironwood Divine Spring, any Heavenly Monarch Realm expert who takes the Ironwood Divine Spring can easily advance a level." Ningyu stopped in his tracks and looked at Ronghao. Ronghao continued, "The Ironwood Divine Spring is not only useful for Heavenly Monarch Realm experts, but also for half-step Heavenly Monarch Realm experts like you. Once you take the Ironwood Divine Spring, you will have 100% chance of advancing to the Heavenly Monarch Realm." 100% chance. Ningyu was finally moved. Ordinary half-step Heavenly Monarch Realm experts had to go through the Heavenly Monarch Tribulation before breaking through to the Heavenly Monarch Realm. How terrifying was the Heavenly Monarch Tribulation? Even he was not absolutely sure that he could survive the tribulation of Lord of Heaven. Now, there was a Ironwood Divine Spring that could help martial artists pass the Heavenly Monarch Tribulation unconditionally. How could he not be shocked? However, although he was shocked, Ningyu didn't show it too much. He had made up his mind. Unless Tai Feng was able to delay the entire plan, he would definitely not stay here. He did have a grudge against marvelous mathematician and the others, but he didn't want to help others. Young hero Ning, why are you so angry? Typhon seemed to have already guessed Ningyu's actions. He smiled faintly and took out a jade bottle from his bosom. Whoosh! With a flick of his wrist, the jade bottle flew towards Ningyu. Pa! Ningyu raised his right hand and steadily caught the jade bottle. This is the Ironwood Divine Spring. It's a gift for our cooperation. Typhon pointed at the jade bottle and said, as for the specific plan, I can't make the decision for now, because the mastermind behind the scenes is not me, but my father, Tai Muyu. Tell me about it. Ningyu's expression softened a little as he sensed the aura emanating from the liquid in the jade bottle. Since Typhon was willing to bleed, then there was still room for discussion. Otherwise, there wouldn't even be a need to talk. Do you think Master Godly Diviner, Thunder Pilking, and Heavenly Lord Du are our main targets? Typhon did not answer Ningyu directly, but asked in return. Oh! Ningyu raised an eyebrow. From Typhon's words, it seemed like the real enemy wasn't Master Godly Diviner and the others. Could it be? There was a big shot behind Master Godly Diviner and Thunder Pilking that had yet to show up? The more Ningyu thought about it, the more likely it was. Otherwise, with Typhon's strength and the heaven-defying spring water, there was no reason why he couldn't invite a few powerful cultivators like him. The Heavenly Lord Du you mentioned is called Du Shibing. He has an uncle called Du Shida, the imperial preceptor of the Soaring Sky Immortal Kingdom. Typhon thought for a moment and said, the Soaring Sky Immortal Kingdom and the Ironwood race are very close to each other. Originally, both sides minded their own business, but who would have thought that Du Shida would suddenly gather the army of the Soaring Sky Immortal Kingdom and attack our Ironwood race tens of thousands of years ago? That battle shook the heavens and the earth, and merely an entire 7 half-step Immortal King realm experts perished in battle. Moreover, the Immortal Kings of the Ironwood race and the Soaring Sky Immortal Kingdom were gravely injured and didn't recover for tens of thousands of years. Ningyu listened quietly and didn't interrupt. Typhon continued, after that battle, the Ironwood race and the Soaring Sky Immortal Kingdom suffered a devastating blow and both sides decided to stop fighting. Unexpectedly, Du Shida led a sneak attack on the Ironwood race. Not only did he snatch away a lot of the Ironwood Divine Spring, he even killed the only immortal king of the Ironwood race. Ka. Speaking up to hear. Typhon paused for a moment and clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. It was obvious. Typhon was extremely angry and wanted nothing more than to grind Du Shida's bones to ashes. After a few minutes, Typhon's expression eased a little and he continued, my father, Tai Muyu, left the Immortal Court with the remaining members of the Ironwood race and came to the Violet Orchid territory. Recently, I received news that Du Shida came out from the Immortal Court and wanted to do something big. After coming out of the Immortal Court, I've gathered all the members of the Ironwood clan to deal Du Shida a fatal blow. After listening to Typhon's words, Ningyu couldn't calm down for a long time. He didn't know how to judge the fate of the Ironwood race. It was hard to say who was right and who was wrong in the war tens of thousands of years ago. However, Ningyu was very clear about the current situation. Behind Du Shibing, there was still Du Shida, and Du Shida's strength must be extremely strong, otherwise, someone as strong as Typhon would definitely not choose to cooperate with him. After all, Typhon's father, Tai Muyu, was still alive. What is Du Shida's strength? How many people in your Ironwood race can fight and what are their strengths? After thinking about it, Ningyu still asked. Since they were going to cooperate, he must know the true strength of the enemy and the strength of his people. Du Shida is a half-step Immortal King. On our side, my father, Tai Muyu, is a half-step Immortal King. I am a peak Heavenly Monarch. Other than me, there are 4 or 5 peak Heavenly Monarch experts, Typhon said. How many peak Heavenly Monarchs are there on Du Shida's side? Ningyu continued to ask. Other than Godly Diviner, Thunder Pellet King, Du Shibing, there are 10 peak Heavenly Monarch experts. Typhon didn't hide anything from Ningyu. Those 10 peak Heavenly Monarch experts are the top experts of the Endless Sky Immortal Kingdom. None of them are weaker than me, I can't believe it. Ningyu cursed on the spot. None of them are weaker than you. Then what's the point of fighting? Tai Feng's battle prowess is extremely strong. Ning Yu was confident, but he wasn't a rash person. With his current combat strength, the mid-stage immortal king disc, the white pearl, and the energy in his sea of consciousness, he could probably defeat 3 Tai Fengs. However, even so, it was useless. 4 or 5 peak heavenly monarchs against 10, no, 13, including godly diviner and the others. The strength of both sides was not equal. There was no point in continuing to fight. I can give each of them a portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring. Chapter 2339. Gulp. Rong Hao swallowed a mouthful of saliva on the spot. Although he came from the Immortal Court and was an expert from a certain immortal kingdom, who didn't want the Ironwood Divine Spring? His current cultivation was at the late stage of Heaven Monarch. Once he consumed the Ironwood Divine Spring, he would definitely advance to the peak of Heaven Monarch realm. If he simply cultivated, he would probably need a long time to advance to the peak of Heaven Monarch realm. Now that the opportunity was right in front of him, how could he not be excited? Swish. He looked at Ningyu with a face full of hope. Seeing Rong Hao's reaction, Ningyu rolled his eyes and said, "Give Rong Hao a portion. As for Ming Hao's Ironwood Divine Spring, leave it to me." Ningyu wasn't a fool. Rong Hao could take the Ironwood Divine Spring because Rong Hao came from the Immortal Court and was on the same side as him. Ming Hao was different. Ming Hao was a heavenly demon and was still under his control. If Ming Hao swallowed the Ironwood Divine Spring, his cultivation would skyrocket to an uncontrollable level. Wouldn't that be the end of him? No problem. Tai Feng didn't want to quarrel with Ningyu. He flicked his wrist and threw a portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring to Ningyu and Rong Hao. "Thank you." Receiving the Ironwood Divine Spring, Rong Hao sat cross-legged and poured it into his mouth. Seeing Rong Hao's action, Ningyu and Tai Feng were a little dumbfounded. Wasn't he too impatient? Although the Ironwood Divine Spring could unconditionally increase a Heaven Monarch realm expert's level, the Ironwood Divine Spring that Tai Feng took out wasn't enough. One portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring was divided into 10 portions by Tai Feng. Rong Hao's portion was only 1/10. Boom. The Ironwood Divine Spring entered his stomach. A terrifying aura was suddenly emitted from Rong Hao's body. At this moment, Rong Hao was ready to break through to the peak of Heaven Monarch realm. Ka. Rong Hao's next action proved that he wasn't impulsive but had long been prepared. He took out elixirs continuously and threw them into his mouth as if they were free. So many elixirs, even Ningyu was a little surprised. "Let's wait and see." Seeing Tai Feng's gaze, Ningyu waved his hand and said, "If Rong Hao can advance to the peak stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, he will be a great help." When Rong Hao was at the late stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, he could use the disc to fight against the Nether Skull. Although he was defeated in the end, his strength was acknowledged by Ningyu. "All right." Tai Feng took a few steps back, giving Rong Hao some space to move around. Anyway, there was someone watching over the Thunder Elixir King. Once the Thunder Elixir King concocted an immortal king pill, he would be the first to receive news. Therefore, it was not a waste of his time to see if Rong Hao could advance to the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye. An hour passed. Poochie. When the second hour arrived, Rong Hao opened his mouth and suddenly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. The Ironwood Divine Spring is not enough. Tai Feng looked at Ningyu and said, "I only have 3 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring water on me. Even if I go back now, it will be too late." "I know what you mean." Ningyu rolled his eyes at Tai Feng. He then took out 2 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring water and threw them to Rong Hao. Ningyu would not be stingy with just 2 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring water. After all, Rong Hao had even given him the disc unconditionally. It was not a big deal for him to give up a few bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring water. Crack, crack. As it was a critical moment, Rong Hao did not thank Tai Feng. He immediately swallowed the 2 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring water. Boom. The Ironwood Divine Spring water entered his stomach. An extremely terrifying aura burst out from Rong Hao's sea of consciousness and soared into the sky. Bang! 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 A series of muffled sounds could be heard. Rong Hao suddenly opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. Boom! Another even more terrifying aura gushed out. Peak of the Heaven Monarch Realm. The rise of this aura meant that Rong Hao's cultivation had reached the terrifying peak of the Heaven Monarch Realm. Thank you. After advancing to the peak of the Heaven Monarch Realm, Rong Hao immediately retracted his aura and thanked Ning Yu and Tai Feng. If not for Tai Feng and Ning Yu's Ironwood Divine Spring, it would have been difficult for him to advance to the peak of the Heaven Monarch Realm. What are you thanking me for? Ning Yu casually waved his hand and said, we're in the same boat. I hope that you can be stronger and protect me when the time comes. Rong Hao nodded his head heavily and did not continue speaking. A great favor could not be thanked with words. As for the disc, it had already recognized its owner and he could not take it back. Now that Ning Yu had given him 2 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring, which allowed him to advance to the peak of the Heaven Monarch Realm successfully, this favor alone was enough for him to repay for a long time. There are still about 2 hours before the Thunder Elixir King can refine the Immortal King Elixir. Why don't I introduce you to the others first? Seeing that Rong Hao had successfully advanced, Tai Feng said timely, this time, we need to work together to encircle Dushida and the others. If there is a problem, it will be serious. No problem. Ning Yu did not reject Tai Feng. Actually, Tai Feng was right. Since they were going to cooperate, they had to have a clear understanding of each other's strength. Otherwise, if there was a problem in any of the links, the consequences would be very serious. Double-horned demonic beast, Ning Lu, go into the Red Devil Sword for now. Before they left, Ning Yu said to the double-horned demonic beast and Ning Lu. Regardless of whether it was the double-horned demonic beast or Ning Lu, they were not particularly strong. They might be able to deal with ordinary martial artists at the peak of the Saint Immortal stage, but against a Heaven Monarch Realm expert, the 2 of them would be no different from cannon fodder. Be careful. Ning Lu knew the severity of the situation. Then, with a flash of his body, he entered the Red Devil Sword. As for the double-horned demonic beast, he looked at Rong Hao and then at Ning Yu. In the end, he went into the Red Devil Sword with Ning Lu. After all, he was used to staying in the Red Devil Sword, and there was someone talking to him in the Red Devil Sword. He was not used to going back to Rong Hao. Ungrateful wretch. Rong Hao rolled his eyes and joked, Ning Yu, I guess it won't be long before the double-horned demonic beast can become one with you and completely betray me. Don't. Ning Yu also made a rare joke and said, I don't like demonic beasts, and I already have someone I like. You can keep the double-horned demonic beast for yourself. Rong Hao was stunned, as if he thought of the ambiguity in Ning Yu's words, and his face turned a little dark. Sure. Ning Yu hurriedly left the room as if he was escaping. Tai Feng and Rong Hao followed closely. Currently, Ning Yu and the others were on the 7th floor of the Yulai restaurant, in the number 3 Supreme Room. Soon, they arrived on the 8th floor, in front of the number 2 Supreme Room. Rong Hao looked at the big words on the door of the room and said doubtfully, this is the highest floor, called the number 2 Supreme Room. Could there be a number 1 Supreme Room on the higher floor? Country bumpkin. As soon as Rong Hao finished speaking. Chapter 2340. Rong Hao looked back. Not far away, a group of 2 martial artists was walking towards him. Rong Hao's expression changed slightly when he felt the aura from the 2 martial artists. Peak stage Heaven Monarch. Obviously. The 2 martial artists were both at the peak of Heaven Monarch. Rong Hao was very clear. Even if he had reached the peak of Heaven Monarch, it would be hard for him to be a match for these 2 martial artists. A bumpkin will always be a bumpkin. Rong Hao's reaction made the 2 martial artists raise the corner of their mouths. They said in a sinister tone, inexperienced. Then, the 2 martial artists looked at Tai Feng and said with dissatisfaction, our opponents are very strong this time. Aren't you afraid of making mistakes by inviting these Tom, Dick, and Harry? Swish. Rong Hao's expression turned ugly when he heard the 2 martial artists' mockery. Oh, you have a different opinion? One of the martial artists in grey saw the change of Ronghao's expression. The martial artist in grey raised his eyebrows and said, "How about this? I'll give you a fair chance. Let's give each other a punch. If you can make me take half a step back, I'll take back what I said before. Otherwise..." The martial artist in grey paused for a moment. Then, he continued, "Otherwise, you have to kneel down and crawl under my crotch. It's not good to crawl under your crotch. It's a little impolite." The other martial artist in white held his chin with his right hand and said thoughtfully, "How about this? We'll leave a way out for each other in case we meet again in the future. Let him be a dog. Call him a dog. Ha ha ha." The martial artist in white and the martial artist in grey laughed as they talked. They didn't put Ning Yu and Tai Feng in their eyes at all. "Your family?" Ning Yu looked at Tai Feng and asked. Tai Feng knew what Ning Yu meant. He shook his head gently and said in a low voice, "This time, I invited many martial artists in the Peak of Heaven Monarch Realm. I almost invited all the martial artists in the Peak of Heaven Monarch Realm outside the Immortal Court and gave them a lot of benefits to confuse them." "That's good." Without waiting for Tai Feng to finish his sentence, Ning Yu said indifferently. Ning Yu didn't care about Tai Feng's motives. He only needed to know if the grey-clothed and white-clothed warriors were from the Taimu family. If that was the case, there was no need for him to do it himself. He could just leave it to Tai Feng. If not, if that was the case, he could personally teach these arrogant people a lesson, and let them know that there were some things that could be said, and some things that could not be said. "What are you guys whispering about?" The actions of Ning Yu and Tai Feng were seen by the white-clothed martial artist. The white-robed cultivator stretched out his right hand and pointed at Ning Yu. He said, "You." "Yes, I'm talking about you. Come here and repeat what you just said to me." Hee. Ning Yu smiled. The ignorant were truly fearless. "What are you laughing at?" The martial artist in white looked gloomy and scolded. "You are just a piece of trash at the half-step Heaven Monarch Realm. How dare you smile at me? You must be tired of living. Do you really want to hear it?" Ning Yu asked. "Speak." The martial artist in white released his aura and suddenly pressed down on Ning Yu. "About barking like a dog, you can consider it," Ning Yu said calmly. "At least you know your place." The martial artist in white said coldly. He was prepared. If Ning Yu dared to say anything disrespectful, he would kill him immediately. He didn't need to use too much strength against a half-step Heaven Monarch Realm martial artist. However, what Ning Yu said next made his face turn completely cold. "Hurry up. You and the grey-clothed elder go and bark like a dog." Ning Yu waved his hand and said, "My time is limited. I don't want to waste any more time here." "What?" The martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist were furious. After all this time, they were fooled. Ka. Knowing that they were fooled, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist were very angry. They were both peak-stage Heaven Monarchs, but they were actually mocked by a half-step Heaven Monarch Realm martial artist. If this matter were to be spread out, how could they survive? Therefore, in their opinion, the young man in front of them must die. Swish, swish. Stepping on the ground, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist rushed out at the same time. They made up their minds. No matter what, they had to teach the young man in front of them a lesson. Otherwise, they would become the target of ridicule. Bang! Bang! However, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist just arrived in front of Ning Yu. Before they punched, they felt their bodies become light and flew straight out. Crack! Crack! His body slammed into the stairs, shattering the guardrail. Puff! Ning Yu's move was extremely powerful. The martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist spurted a big mouthful of blood at the same time, and their aura dropped sharply. In a short period of time, their aura dropped from peak stage Heaven Monarch Realm to early stage Heaven Monarch Realm. After being defeated by Ning Yu in one move, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist burst into hysterical roars. They never expected that this young man who was half-step to the Heaven Monarch Realm was the real expert. Even if the two of them attacked at the same time, they were still defeated easily. Bark! Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said to the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist, "My patience is limited." Hearing Ningyu's request, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist clenched their fists in anger. They didn't even care that their nails dug into their palms. They knew very well what Ningyu meant. He asked them to bark like a dog. Don't bark. Seeing that the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist were not going to compromise, Ningyu turned to Rong Hao and said, "Rong Tianjun, please." Woof, woof. Before Ningyu finished speaking, the white-robed cultivator and the grey-robed cultivator let out a series of shouts. While barking, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist made up their minds. Today, Ningyu had humiliated them. In the future, they would pay back double. Let's go. Typhon glanced at the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist and finally chose to give up. Compared to Ningyu, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed martial artist could be abandoned. Creak. The door of the number 2 Supreme Room was pushed open. Ningyu and Typhon walked in together. As for Rong Hao and Ming Hao, they followed closely and didn't dare to be careless. Bang! After Ningyu, Typhon, and the others entered the number 2 Supreme Room, the martial artist in white and the grey-clothed old man pounded the ground with their right hands. Shameful. So shameful. They thought that they could defeat Ningyu easily. Never did they expect that they would be defeated so easily. The current situation was very unfavorable for them. It was a big problem whether they could enter the number 2 Supreme Room or not. If they didn't go in, they couldn't get the Ironwood Divine Spring. If they went in, they would have to face Ningyu one more time. At this moment, they were in a dilemma. Jiobin, Ju Hang, what are you doing? Right at this moment. Chapter 2341. Swish. The white-clothed martial artist and the grey-clothed martial artist, Jiobin and Ju Hang, hurriedly looked to the other side. Rustle. Not far away, a young martial artist dressed in red was slowly walking towards them. Not long after, the martial artist in red stopped in front of them and asked doubtfully, "In 10 minutes, Typhon will distribute the Ironwood Divine Spring. Why don't you go in?" Jiobin and Ju Hang exchanged glances when they saw the cultivator in red. They could see a trace of excitement in each other's eyes. They couldn't pose a threat to Ningyu even if they joined forces. However, the martial artist in red was different. Although the martial artist in red was also at the peak of the Lord of Heaven, his strength was much stronger than theirs. Most importantly, they knew each other before and had a good relationship with the martial artist in red. It couldn't be better to drag the martial artist in red down and let him fight against Ningyu. Jiobin and Ju Hang were not indecisive people. They quickly said, "Lin Lang, we met a martial artist at the half-step Lord of Heaven realm. He is stronger than you." Oh! Lin Lang raised his eyebrows. Stronger than him? To be honest, he didn't really believe it. After all, he was at the peak of the Lord of Heaven realm and was known as the strongest under the Immortal King realm. Although he hadn't reached the half-step Immortal King realm, with his current combat strength, he might be able to fight against a half-step Immortal King expert. Even if he couldn't defeat a half-step Immortal King, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape from one. Now that Jiobin said that a half-step Lord of Heaven realm martial artist was comparable to him or even stronger than him, how could he believe it? With a faint smile, Lin Lang began moving toward the Sovereign Room too. Wait. Seeing that Lin Lang was about to leave, Jiobin hurriedly said, "That martial artist is really strong. Not only is he much younger than you, but he is also much stronger than you." Rustle. Lin Lang stopped and turned around to look at Jiobin. "So what?" Jiobin was slightly taken aback by Lin Lang's question. Yes, so what? Everything was between them and the young man. It really had nothing to do with Lin Lang. No matter how strong that youth was, Lin Lang didn't need to care. After all, there was no necessary connection between them. "We want you to help us deal with him." Jiobin gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "As long as you can teach him a lesson, we're willing to give you a share of our Ironwood Divine Spring." "Give me a share." Lin Lang looked at Jiobin with interest and said, I have received accurate news that Typhon has changed the distribution of the Ironwood Divine Spring. Let's talk about it when you get it. As he spoke, Lin Lang walked toward Supreme Room 2 without looking back, leaving behind a dumbfounded Jobin and Ju Hang. Changed the distribution method? They were the experts invited by Typhon this time. Even if there was a change in the distribution method, Typhon should have told them about it. Something's wrong. Jobin and Ju Hang quickly reacted. Judging from Typhon's reaction when they were defeated, it seemed that Typhon had the intention to change the distribution method. Furthermore, the new distribution method would most likely result in them being kicked out. Perhaps they despised them for being too weak, or perhaps they were easily defeated by that youth. Either way, Typhon must have changed the distribution method of the Ironwood Divine Spring. Let's go. Jobin and Ju Hang angrily walked toward Supreme Room 2 with a cold expression. When Jobin and Ju Hang dared to enter the Supreme Room 2, they heard a crisp sound. Following the sound, inside the room, a one-eyed old man slapped the seat under him and said coldly, "Typhon, how dare you go back on your words? Do you think we're easy to bully? Don't be angry." Typhon's expression was indifferent, without joy or sorrow. "Since we have many people, we must change the distribution method of the Ironwood Divine Spring." The one-eyed old man snorted and said, "I don't care about other things, but if anyone wants to compete with me for my share of the Ironwood Divine Spring, feel free to come and try." Thump. Hearing the one-eyed old man's voice, Jobin and Ju Hang's faces turned ugly. What they feared had come true. They came to Violet Orchid City with the purpose of obtaining the Ironwood Divine Spring. Now, Typhon had changed the distribution method, which made them extremely angry. It was not just stupid, but something else. Jobin and Ju Hang said coldly, "We object to changing the distribution method. You said before that anyone who has reached the peak of the Lord of Heaven can get a bottle of the Ironwood Divine Spring unconditionally." Swish. Jobin and Ju Hang's words attracted the attention of more than a dozen peak Heavenly Monarch Realm experts in Room 2, including Ningyu and Rong Hao. A little interesting. Ningyu sat on the chair and said indifferently, "Do you think Typhon will push us out?" Rong Hao sat beside Ningyu and said in a low voice. In fact, Rong Hao's worry was not unreasonable. Typhon gave him a bottle of Ironwood Divine Spring, and Ningyu got 2 bottles. Now that the distribution method was changed, anyone would think in this direction. He doesn't have the guts. Ningyu waved his hand, telling Rong Hao not to worry. As long as Typhon was not a fool, he should know that they were the strongest among the dozens of experts at the peak of the Lord of Heaven present. Rong Hao was at the peak of the Lord of Heaven, so was Ming Hao, and he could even fight experts who were half a step to the immortal king realm. In this case, unless there was something wrong with Typhon's head, he would never do something stupid. The facts proved that Typhon's head was not wrong. He casually glanced at Jobin and Ju Hang, and said indifferently, "The redistribution method is very simple. I will take out a dozen or so crystal balls. Later, you will drop your blood essence on them, and then use your soul force to attack the crystal balls. Whoever can break the formation, I will give you a complete Ironwood Divine Spring unconditionally." Clatter. Typhon's words caused a huge uproar in Supreme Room 2. A complete Ironwood Divine Spring? Compared to before, it was 10 bottles. Wasn't the purpose of their coming here for the Ironwood Divine Spring? According to the previous distribution method, a bottle of Ironwood Divine Spring would not be of much use to them. Now that Typhon took out 10 bottles at once, although the conditions were extremely harsh, it was not impossible. "I will go first." Jobin took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Take out the crystal ball. I want to see what tricks you are playing." Swish. Typhon did not talk nonsense. With a flick of his wrist, a crystal ball flew out in an instant. Jobin caught the crystal ball steadily and directly forced a drop of essence blood on it. Moreover. Chapter 2342. Ningyu, do you think he can break through the array in the crystal ball? Rong Hao asked in a low voice when he saw Jobin attacking the crystal ball with all his might. Break through the array? Ningyu raised the corner of his mouth and said with a faint smile, "Do you really think Typhon is so kind as to give 10 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring to anyone who can break through the array? Isn't that so?" Rong Hao was slightly startled and asked doubtfully. In Rong Hao's opinion, in order to defeat the state preceptor of the Soaring Sky Immortal Kingdom, Typhon would unconditionally take out 100 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring, let alone 10. Why did it sound like things weren't that simple from Ningyu's point of view? Ningyu smiled and didn't answer. Ningyu was very clear about the fact that there were too many people around. As long as Typhon didn't target him, there was no need for him to leak the news. After all, Typhon gave him 2 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. Although he gave them to Rong Hao, Typhon still treated him well. Since Ningyu didn't say anything, Rong Hao didn't ask too much. He could only turn around and look at Jobin, hoping to find some clues. Swish. When Rong Hao looked at Jobin, everyone in the number 2 Supreme cabin looked at Jobin. They all wanted to see if Jobin could break through the array and get 10 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. However, nothing was absolute. In the cabin, there were 2 people who didn't look at Jobin. One was Ningyu. The other was Lin Lang. Interesting. Lin Lang's lips curled up slightly and revealed a playful look. When Jobin and Zhu Hang said that he was defeated by a half-step heaven monarch, he didn't take it seriously and thought that Jobin and Zhu Hang were exaggerating. However, when he saw Ningyu, he finally understood. Jobin and Zhu Hang didn't exaggerate. The strength of this half-step heaven monarch young man in front of him was indeed terrifying. Even he didn't have the absolute confidence to win. Sure. After thinking about it, Lin Lang walked straight towards Ningyu. Everyone in the number 2 Supreme room had their eyes on Jobin. Only Typhon noticed Lin Lang's actions. This time, he invited over a dozen peak stage Heaven Monarch martial artists, but only Lin Lang and the martial artists in the Supreme number 1 private room caught his attention. To be honest, he did not wish to see Lin Lang and Ningyu being too close. But right now, his main focus was still on checking the crystal ball. He had no time to care about Lin Lang and Ningyu, so he could only let them communicate. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Lin Lang." Before long, Lin Lang stood in front of Ningyu and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Ningyu." Ningyu also extended his hand. Whoosh. Just as he held Lin Lang's hand, Ningyu felt a force attacking his palm. There was no need to think about it. It must be Lin Lang testing him. Ningyu did not want to have a conflict with Lin Lang, but since Lin Lang took the initiative to provoke him, he had to respond. The immortal chi in his body surged and attacked Lin Lang's palm along his palm. Whoosh. Ningyu's counterattack made Lin Lang's heart tremble. He knew that Ningyu would counterattack, but he did not expect it to be so terrifying. In order not to be at a disadvantage, he had to increase his strength. However, when he increased his strength, Ningyu would also increase his strength. Damn it! Lin Lang cursed in his heart. A terrifying aura surged out from his body. He wanted to face Ningyu head-on and see who was the real expert. Crack. At this moment, the crystal ball on Jobin's side suddenly cracked. The cracking of the crystal ball meant that Jobin had cracked the formation inside. Clap, clap, clap. For a moment, the martial artists in the private room all stood up and applauded. Jobin has cracked the formation, and is rewarded with 10 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. Typhon quietly put away the crystal ball fragments, then took out 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring and said, "I'll give you 5 bottles first, and the other 5 will be given after the plan is completed." "Thank you." Jobin took the 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring and thanked Typhon. He then looked at Ningyu with a provocative gaze. "Idiot," Ningyu said indifferently. So silly and cute. He had been sold, but he was still happily counting money for others. You can see it too. Due to Jobin breaking the array formation in the crystal ball, Ningyu and Lin Lang's first confrontation was announced to be evenly matched. At this moment, seeing the change in Ningyu's expression, Lin Lang said, "Are you interested in fighting for the Ironwood Divine Spring? If you dare to cause trouble, I can guarantee that you will be eliminated before you reach the number 1 private room." Ningyu said calmly, Boring. Lin Lang curled his lips and said, I'm not going to cause trouble, I'm going to obtain the Ironwood Divine Spring legally. Rustle. Lin Lang was a man of action. He pushed away Ju Hang, who was preparing, and said to Tai Feng, I want to try. Swoosh. The corner of Tai Feng's eyes revealed a cold expression. However, this cold expression was well concealed by him. Sure. With a flick of his wrist, Tai Feng threw an ordinary crystal ball to Lin Lang. Obviously, Tai Feng had done something to the others, but he did not do anything to Lin Lang. Even the crystal ball was extremely fragile, and would shatter with a slight touch. Crack. Lin Lang only touched the crystal ball with his hand, and the crystal ball completely shattered. Swoosh. Swoosh. Tai Feng chose to treat everyone equally. He threw 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring to Lin Lang. Thank you. Lin Lang waved the Ironwood Divine Spring in his hand, and then returned to Ningyu's side. How about it? Can you consider showing your skills? Anyway, Tai Feng will not do anything to you. Lin Lang shrugged and said to Ningyu, he wants to use our strength to fight against Marvelous Mathematician and the others. On the other hand, we can use him to obtain a large amount of Ironwood Divine Spring. This is a win-win situation. That's true. Ningyu nodded in agreement. Apart from him and Lin Lang, no one else could see Tai Feng's intention. The array in the crystal ball did exist, but it was not the core. The real core was the essence blood that everyone dripped into the crystal ball. Tai Feng could use that essence blood to do a lot of things, including controlling the peak stage Heaven Monarch martial artists in the private room, Pa. While Ningyu and Lin Lang were talking in a low voice, Ju Hang was the second to drip his essence blood on the crystal ball. After all, Lin Lang was just going through the motions and did not drip his essence blood on it. Therefore, Ju Hang was the second, not the third. Crack. As if he did not want to waste time, the crystal ball shattered before Ju Hang exerted much force. Here you go. Tai Feng flicked his wrist again and threw out 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. Crash. Many peak stage Heaven Monarch martial artists in the private room saw it and rushed forward to drip their essence blood on the crystal ball. Crack, 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 crack. In just over 10 minutes, the new distribution method proposed by Tai Feng was completed. Including Lin Lang, most of the people in the private room, except for Ningyu and Rong Hao, got the Ironwood Divine Spring. Only 2 peak stage Heaven Monarch martial artists were invited out by Tai Feng. Let's go to the number 1 private room. Tai Feng did not waste any time. He came to the wall and wanted to use his hands to move the mural hanging on the wall. Wait. However. Chapter 2343. Swish. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The martial artist who spoke was Jiobin. At this moment, Jiobin stared at Ningyu valiantly like a cheapskate who had just won, and said gloomily, Ningyu, we have all broken the formation in the crystal ball and obtained 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. You and the old man next to you have all broken the formation. Why didn't you and the old man next to you give it a try? Logically speaking, it has nothing to do with me whether you try or not. But we're going to Supreme Box 1 next. You didn't even pass the assessment. How dare you go to Supreme Box 1 with us? Jiobin's words were reasonable. For a moment, all the martial artists in the box turned their eyes to Ningyu and Rong Hao. Since entering Supreme Box 2, except for Ningyu and Rong Hao, basically everyone had obtained Ironwood Divine Spring. They were qualified to enter Supreme Box 1, but how could Ningyu and Rong Hao be qualified? I thought someone was powerful. It turns out that he's just a wax statue. Nice to look at but useless. Ju Hang curled his lips and said, Jiobin, don't force them. With their strength, how can they break the formation in the crystal ball? Aren't you trying to kill them? Tai Feng did not intervene in Jiobin and Ju Hang's provocation. He even slowly retracted his right hand, which he had used to open the door to the number 1 room. Seeing this, everyone could see that Tai Feng also intended to let Ningyu break the formation in the crystal ball. Rong Tianjun, you go and try first. Ningyu did not make an exception. He said to Rong Hao, don't force yourself if you can't. Understood. Rong Hao seemed to have guessed Ning Yu's intention. He took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "If you can break the formation, I can do the same." Do the same? What a joke. Jiao Bin sneered and said, "If I'm not wrong, you have just advanced to the peak of Lord of Heaven. Your overall strength should be similar to the two people who were just invited out. If you know what's good for you, get out of here. Otherwise, it will be revealed and make everyone look bad." Hee hee. Rong Hao smiled and did not continue to tangle with Jiao Bin. He came out to break the array formation, not to bicker with Jiao Bin. If they really wanted to bicker, Ning Yu would probably take action himself. Moreover, after observing for so long, Rong Hao could see some clues. Everyone dripped their blood onto the crystal ball. In the end, the blood was collected by Tai Feng. In this situation, there was only one possibility. Tai Feng's collection of their blood essence was of great use. Although he did not know what it was used for, Rong Hao was not a fool. He would not hand over the blood essence. Here. Tai Feng thought for a while before throwing out a black crystal ball. Pa. Rong Hao caught the crystal ball and his face darkened. Other people's crystal balls were basically transparent, but his crystal ball was not only opaque, but also black. Rong Hao did not immediately try to break the array formation within the water crystal ball. Instead, he shifted his gaze towards Ning Yu, wanting to see what advice Ning Yu could give him. Do your best and leave the rest to fate. Ning Yu's expression was indifferent. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. Hearing Ning Yu's words, Rong Hao was stunned for a moment before slapping the crystal ball with his right hand. Ning Yu's meaning was very clear. As long as he did not drip his blood onto the crystal ball, he could try his best to break the array formation within the crystal ball. I would like to see if you can break the array formation. Jiao Bin snorted coldly and said, "Trash will always be trash. I don't believe you can succeed. If he succeeds, I will twist my head off and let him use it as a chamber pot." Zhu Hang echoed. Buzz buzz buzz. Things seemed to be developing in the direction that Jiao Bin and Zhu Hang had expected. 5 minutes passed. The black crystal ball did not respond. 10 minutes passed. The black crystal ball did not respond either. Swoosh. In the end, the black crystal ball even broke free from Rong Hao's palm and returned to Tai Feng's hand. Ha ha ha. Jiao Bin and Zhu Hang were stunned for a moment before they could not help but laugh wildly. I'm dying of laughter. I have already said that trash like you can't break the array formation. Looks like it's true. Did you offend Tai Feng somehow? Even Lin Lang felt that this change was a little unbelievable. After all, Ning Yu's strength was comparable to his. At this time, unless Tai Feng's head was rusty, he would not go against Rong Hao. But it had already happened. Rong Hao really did not break the crystal ball. And you? Jiao Bin and Zhu Hang felt that they should follow up with another attack. They then pointed the spearhead at Ning Yu and said coldly, "In the entire number 2 Supreme Room, you're the only one who hasn't tried to break the array formation. I'd like to see if you really have the ability to break the array formation." Tai Feng. Ning Yu ignored Jiao Bin and Zhu Hang's mockery. He stood up and looked at Tai Feng. "Give me the black crystal ball." This, hearing Ning Yu's words, a cold glint flashed across Tai Feng's eyes. But in the end, he still threw the black crystal ball to Ning Yu. Crack. Ning Yu did not use his hand to catch the crystal ball. Instead, he casually threw a punch at it. Wherever the fist aura passed, the crystal ball shattered on the spot. Swoosh. The moment the crystal ball shattered, a faint cold light suddenly swept out. Where are you going? Ning Yu was quick to react. He stomped on the ground and grabbed the ball. Rong Tianjun, here you go. With a flick of his wrist, Ning Yu threw the cold glow in his palm to Rong Tianjun. Whoosh. Looking at the cold glow flying toward him, Rong Tianjun's expression changed slightly. He did not have time to think. He immediately opened up his mind and allowed the cold glow to enter his body. Boom. As soon as the black crystal ball entered his body, Rong Hao felt as if something that was missing in his body had been replenished. You. In an instant. Rong Hao's expression turned cold. He turned around and stared at Tai Feng, saying in a deep voice, "Why, Pa? Before Rong Hao could finish his words, Ningyu patted his shoulder and said indifferently, "Leave this matter to me." While they were talking, Ningyu moved his feet and slowly came in front of Tai Feng. 10 portions. Stretching out his right hand, Ningyu did not beat around the bush and said directly, 10 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. Fart. As soon as Ningyu said that, Jobin and Ju Hang could not help but burst into laughter. 10 portions? What kind of person was he? He asked for 10 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring the moment he opened his mouth. Noisy. Facing Jobin and Ju Hang's mockery, Ningyu's expression turned cold and he casually waved 2 cold glows. Bang! Bang! The cold glows were so fast that they almost reached Jobin and Ju Hang in the blink of an eye. 2 crisp sounds could be heard, indicating that Jobin and Ju Hang were hit by the cold glows and fell to the ground. Fart. Blood spurted out of their mouths. Jobin and Ju Hang's aura instantly dropped from the peak of the Heaven Lord realm to the early stage. Chapter 2344. Jobin and Ju Hang had provoked Ningyu again and again. How could Ningyu let them go? He succeeded in one move. Ningyu chased after them. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive punches landed on Jobin's and Ju Hang's heads. In an instant, Jobin's and Ju Hang's heads exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Hiss. Seeing Jobin's and Ju Hang's tragic deaths, everyone in Supreme Room 2 gasped. Jobin and Ju Hang's strength might not be among the top few in the room, but it was enough for them to be in the middle. With such strength, they were easily killed by Ningyu. One could imagine. If it were them, their ending would not be much different. Rustle. After killing Jobin and Ju Hang, Ningyu squatted beside them and took the Ironwood Divine Spring. Both of them had passed Tai Feng's test, and each of them had 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. Now that they were killed, the Ironwood Divine Spring naturally belonged to Ningyu. After taking the Ironwood Divine Spring, Ningyu turned to look at Tai Feng and said, 10. Tai Feng's face turned ugly. He had thought that his scheme against Rong Hao would not be discovered. Who would have thought? Ningyu was so smart that he could see the abnormality of the black crystal ball. Now that Ningyu wanted 10 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring, it put him in a difficult position. In fact, he could take out 10 complete bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring, but if he did that, he would not be able to explain to Tai Muyu when he entered Supreme Room 1. After all, these Ironwood Divine Spring were only with him for safekeeping. He was only able to distribute a small portion of it. The rest of the distribution was in the hands of the Ironwood Fish. How about 1? After thinking about it, Tai Feng took out a complete bottle of Ironwood Divine Spring and said to Ningyu, I can give you 1 bottle of Ironwood Divine Spring and pretend that nothing happened. 10. Ningyu said firmly. 3 portions at most. Tai Feng gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, I only have 3 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring left. I don't have any more. Let's go. Ningyu did not want to talk nonsense with Tai Feng. He glanced at Rong Hao and walked out of the box. All right. 10 servings it is. Seeing that Ningyu wanted to leave, Tai Feng couldn't care less. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed a space ring to Ningyu. Obviously, the ring contained 10 complete portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. Catching the ring, Ningyu used his perception to look at it, and then put it into his bosom. With 10 complete sets of Ironwood Divine Spring, Ningyu was confident that he could break through to the Heaven Monarch realm. For an ordinary martial artist, perhaps 1 portion, or even half a portion, could raise one's cultivation by a level. For example, Rong Hao had only used 3 bottles, which was 3/10 of the Ironwood Divine Spring, to advance from the late-stage Heaven Monarch realm to the peak stage of Heaven Monarch realm. Although Rong Hao was not far from the peak stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, it was enough to show how terrifying the Ironwood Divine Spring was. Can we go now? Tai Feng gritted his teeth and said. No problem. Ningyu shrugged his shoulders. At first, Ningyu did not feel that there was anything special about Tai Feng. But now, Ningyu finally understood. Tai Feng must be plotting something against him, otherwise, it was impossible to give him 10 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. What was the concept of 10 portions? It was a known fact that everyone else in the box only took half of the ironwood divine spring. He asked for 10 portions, and Typhon did not refuse. From this point, Jiang Yi could see that Typhon must be plotting something against him. Even if he knew, Ning Yu did not choose to make it public. This was the Pleasant Arrival restaurant, Typhon's main battlefield. If he left without a clear understanding of the situation, he might become the target of everyone. After all, there would always be brave men with great rewards. If Typhon used the ironwood divine spring to tempt others, it would be hard for him to leave. Creak. While Ning Yu was thinking, Typhon had already opened the passage to Supreme Number 1 box. Swoosh. Then, everyone entered in a line. Let's go. Ning Yu did not hesitate and entered Supreme Number 1 box with Rong Hao. Swoosh. As soon as they entered Supreme Number 1 box, they were stared at. After adapting to the environment, Ning Yu looked around. At this time, he was in a closed room. Although it was said to be closed, it was actually very spacious. It was the size of dozens of Supreme Number 2 boxes. Although the room was spacious, there were more than a dozen martial artists gathered around an altar. Half-step Immortal King. Ning Yu's eyes fell on the old man above the altar. The old man's cultivation had reached the horrifying half-step Immortal King realm. Apart from the old man, the rest of the martial artists were all at the peak Heavenly Lord realm. Swoosh. Seeing Ning Yu and the others coming in, the old man jumped down from the altar. Wait a moment. The old man gave a few instructions and then walked straight to Typhon. Seeing the old man walking towards him, Typhon quickly took out a space ring and handed it to the old man. Then, he said, "Father, the ironwood divine spring is all here." Well done. The old man was Tai Muyu. After glancing at Ning Yu and Lin Lang, Tai Muyu began to check the space ring. Halfway through the check, Tai Muyu frowned slightly. What's going on? Tai Muyu's face was extremely cold. At this time, no matter how stupid he was, he knew that the space ring was missing 10 portions of ironwood divine spring. Typhon did not say anything but looked at Ning Yu involuntarily. Got it. Let them drink the ironwood divine spring now. Tai Muyu did not care anymore and returned to the altar. Cough cough. Typhon coughed twice and then said to Ning Yu and Lin Lang, "With my father here, you can drink the ironwood divine spring to cultivate." The martial artists chosen by Typhon were all at the peak of the Lord of Heaven. They were not fools. Their original intention was to use the ironwood divine spring to break through to the half-step Immortal King realm. Even if they could not break through to the half-step Immortal King realm, they wanted to double their strength. Now that Typhon asked them to drink the ironwood divine spring, how could they be willing? Typhon, I need an explanation. A martial artist at the peak of the Lord of Heaven in blue took a step forward and said coldly, "You said before that we can handle the ironwood divine spring by ourselves. Why are you forcing us to swallow it now? Why do you care so much?" Typhon waved his hand impatiently and said, "You have 2 choices now. First, swallow the ironwood divine spring to cultivate. Second, get lost." Humph. Just get lost. What's the big deal? The blue-clothed Lord of Heaven snorted and then turned to leave without hesitation. Swish. As soon as the blue-clothed Lord of Heaven turned around, Typhon immediately dashed out and appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. He clenched his right fist and suddenly punched out. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The blue-clothed Lord of Heaven flew straight toward the altar like a kite with a broken string. Plop! Chapter 2345. Hiss. All of a sudden. Aside from Typhon and the martial artists who were already present, even Ning Yu and Lin Lang could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. At this point, they finally figured out the situation. It was not so easy to get the ironwood divine spring. Gulp. Under such a strong deterrent, the rest of the martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven threw the ironwood divine spring into their mouths. What should we do? Seeing that everyone began to swallow the ironwood divine spring, Rong Hao looked at Ning Yu and said in a low voice, "How about, swallow?" Ning Yu interrupted Rong Hao and handed him a portion of ironwood divine spring, saying, "Don't worry about other things. Anyway, Your task is to improve your strength. Understood. Rong Hao was stunned at first. Then he took the ironwood divine spring and poured it into his mouth. As for Ning Yu, he found an empty space and sat down cross-legged. He took out a portion of ironwood divine spring and began to swallow it for cultivation. Finally, the fox's tail is revealed. Lin Lang looked extremely serious. In fact, he had guessed a certain possibility at the beginning. After all, Tai Feng took out so much ironwood divine spring at once. It was certainly not without purpose. But he didn't expect that the final result would be like this. Tai Muyu, who was at the half-step Lord of Heaven Realm, was afraid that all the martial artists present would become his foil. Because Tai Muyu's purpose was to heal his internal injuries and improve his strength to the peak of the half-step Immortal King, Tai Muyu's body was no longer at its peak due to years of fighting. His body was severely injured. Moreover, in addition to his body, his soul power was also devastated. This time, he spent a lot of money to invite so many martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven Realm. On the one hand, it was indeed to fight against the marvelous mathematician and the others. On the other hand, it was to find the right person for him to possess. Humph. If I want to succeed, I have to see if someone agrees or not. Lin Lang snorted. Then, like Ning Yu, he sat down cross-legged and began to swallow the ironwood divine spring to cultivate. Tick, tick. As time went on, all kinds of cultivation methods were displayed in the huge box of the Supreme Number 1. Muffled bangs rang out incessantly. Every time there was a muffled sound, it meant that a cultivator had completely absorbed the ironwood divine spring, and their strength had increased. In the entire private room, apart from Ning Yu, Rong Hao, and Lin Lang, the rest of the martial artists at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm only had 5 bottles of ironwood divine spring. 5 bottles were equivalent to half a portion. For an ordinary martial artist, this much ironwood divine spring might be able to raise their cultivation by 1 level. However, for these geniuses who were already at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm, it was basically impossible for them to improve their cultivation. When they swallowed the ironwood divine spring, it was more of an improvement in their strength. Bang! About half an hour later, a muffled sound rang out from Rong Hao's sea of consciousness. It meant that Rong Hao had completely devoured the ironwood divine fountain. Damn it! Although Tai Feng was on the other side, his attention was always on Rong Hao, Ning Yu, and Lin Lang. Tai Feng did not pay much attention to the others. After all, he had already tampered with the ironwood divine spring that he had given to those people. As for the ironwood divine spring that he had given to Ning Yu and Lin Lang, even if he had tampered with it, it was very likely that he would be discovered. His current idea was very simple. That was, Ning Yu and Lin Lang would not discover the problem with the ironwood divine spring, so that they could swallow it completely. However, although the ideal was very rich, the reality was very harsh. With the strength of Ning Yu and Lin Lang alone, they might be able to escape from the hands of a half-step to Immortal King. Among them, Ning Yu might even be able to fight against a half-step to Immortal King with the help of the round plate, the white bead, and the energy in his sea of consciousness. Boom! Another half an hour later, Ning Yu suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a burst of light in his eyes. With a total of 9 portions of ironwood divine spring, plus the energy in his sea of consciousness and the energy in the white bead, Ning Yu's cultivation had reached the peak of a half-step to Heavenly Lord. Even a little bit of energy could trigger the tribulation of Heavenly Lord. Compression. This situation was extremely dangerous. Therefore, Ning Yu decided to take the risk and transfer the energy in the white bead and the ironwood divine spring into his sea of consciousness. Then, he used Ning Lu's blood essence to completely seal it. Swish. Ning Yu was not an indecisive person. He hurriedly contacted Ning Lu and obtained a lot of blood essence from him. The blood essence entered his sea of consciousness and, together with the round plate, forcibly sealed the excess energy. Boom! As soon as Ning Yu sealed the energy, Lin Lang, who was on the other side, suddenly opened his eyes, and a gust of aura rushed into the sky. Not simple. Feeling the aura emanating from Lin Lang, Ning Yu's face became extremely serious. He was not a half-step to Immortal King, but stronger than one. The meaning was very simple. Although Lin Lang's cultivation had not reached the half-step to Immortal King, the energy in his body had broken through the limit and reached the level of an ordinary half-step to Immortal King. Very good. No one knew if he had been paying attention to the situation here, but when Ningyu and Lin Lang finished cultivating, Tai Muyu nodded slightly and said, "All of you, come here. Inject the energy in your bodies into the altar." Many martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven hesitated. They had come here to fight against the marvelous mathematician and the others, not to listen to Tai Muyu's orders. Don't worry, this is part of the fight against the marvelous mathematician and the others. Tai Feng smiled and said, "Inject your energy into the altar first, and then I will give you a portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring. Remember, a complete portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring." Okay. Tai Feng's temptation played a big role. The martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven moved to the side of the altar and injected all their energy into it. "The three of you, don't just stand there. Hurry up and come over." Tai Feng looked at Ningyu and Lin Lang and said, "As long as you inject your energy into the altar, I will compensate you with double the amount of the Ironwood Divine Spring." "There is no need for that." Ningyu got up and tidied up his clothes. He said lightly, "We will not get involved in your business for the time being." "That's right, we will not get involved." Lin Lang knew what Ningyu meant, so he agreed. At this time, Ningyu needed to find allies, and so did Lin Lang. Therefore, the two sides hit it off and formed a temporary alliance. "I am afraid it is not up to you." Tai Feng's face became extremely cold, and he said in a deep voice, "According to our agreement, you must obey unconditionally and inject your energy into the altar. Otherwise, what awaits you is death." Boom. As soon as the word death fell, a terrifying aura suddenly emitted from Tai Feng's body and pressed down on Ningyu and Lin Lang. Pseudo half-step to Immortal King. Chapter 2346. Although Tai Muyu was a half-step Immortal King, his body was unwell and he was being held up by the altar. Tai Feng was different. He could attack without any worries. Originally, Ningyu and Lin Lang thought that Tai Feng was only at the peak of the Lord of Heaven and his strength would not be that strong. However, the current situation was far beyond their expectations. Tai Feng, who was a half-step Immortal King, was enough to attract their attention. However, that was all. Even if Tai Muyu was not injured, Ningyu would not be afraid. Because his overall strength was entirely capable of going against a half-step Immortal King realm expert. "I will give you one last chance." Tai Feng stared coldly at Ningyu and Lin Lang and shouted, "Surrender, or die." Boom. While speaking, Tai Feng exerted all the aura in his body and crazily pressed down on Ningyu and Lin Lang. Tai Feng did not want to fall out with Ningyu and Lin Lang. Whether it was Ningyu or Lin Lang, they were extremely strong. Tai Feng's original intention was to control Lin Lang and Ningyu, making them the vanguard to charge and break through enemy lines. "Don't waste your energy." Lin Lang shrugged and said indifferently, "We all understand the principle of taking someone's money to eliminate disaster. But our task is to deal with marvelous mathematician and the others, not to stay here and help your father recover." As his voice fell, Lin Lang glanced at the Tai Muyu on the altar. Swish. Lin Lang's action made Tai Feng's face extremely cold. He did not expect that Lin Lang could see some clues. Indeed, he spent the Ironwood Divine Spring to invite these people here for two main tasks. One was to fight against marvelous mathematician and the other was to help Tai Muyu recover. "A few of you, come here." Tai Feng took a deep breath and said to the altar, "Whoever can take down one of them, I will reward him with a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring." Whoosh. Brave men are bound to be inspired by generous rewards. Hearing that Tai Feng was willing to take out an entire portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring, several peak stage Heaven Monarch Realm martial artists at the edge of the altar instantly left the altar and rushed towards Ningyu. These martial artists at the peak of the Heaven Monarch Realm were not fools. In their opinion, both Rong Hao and Lin Lang were peak stage Heaven Monarchs. Ningyu was the only one who was only a half-step Lord of Heaven. When picking a persimmon, one had to pick the soft one. Therefore, they all rushed forward, and their target was Ningyu. Humph. A sin committed by heaven can be forgiven, but a sin committed by oneself cannot be forgiven. Seeing so many heavenly lords rushing towards him, Ningyu snorted coldly. He injected the immortal chi in his body into his fist and punched out. Bang bang bang, Ningyu's attack speed was very fast, and he did not hold back at all. Every time he attacked, a heaven monarch would be killed. In just a few seconds, 4 or 5 peak stage heaven monarch realm experts who rushed at him had all died tragically. Hiss. Ningyu's domineering performance caused the other cultivators who wanted to make a move to suck in a breath of cold air. They wanted to choose Ningyu, but now, they all changed their target to Lin Lang. Puff, puff, puff. But this time, they were disappointed again. Lin Lang took out a silver-white flying sword and waved it repeatedly. Every time the flying sword waved, a heaven monarch would be killed. For a moment, the heaven monarchs at the altar were completely dumbfounded. They wanted to attack Ningyu, but they found that Ningyu was very strong. When they set their target on Lin Lang, they found that Lin Lang was even more terrifying than Ningyu. Were they going to target Rong Hao? If Rong Hao was also strong, wouldn't they be in trouble? As the saying went, there must be a brave man under a high reward. However, the whole Ironwood Divine Spring that Typhone took out was not a high reward. If Typhone was willing to take out 10 Ironwood Divine Springs, they might continue to attack. But 1 Ironwood Divine Spring, they had to consider it. Damn it! 8 peak stage heaven monarchs died one after another, and Typhone couldn't help but curse. But the tragic deaths of these martial artists were not completely useless. At least, it gave Typhone a reference and allowed him to roughly guess the strength of Ningyu and Lin Lang. At the same time, he felt very lucky that he didn't go out to fight against 2 people. It should be known. With the strength of Lin Lang and Ningyu, he didn't have the confidence to win even if it was a one-on-one fight, let alone against 2 people. If I knew this, I wouldn't have given them so much Ironwood Divine Spring. Typhone looked gloomy and couldn't help but feel a little regretful. When he met Ningyu and Lin Lang for the first time, they weren't as strong as they were now. The improvement of Ningyu and Lin Lang's strength completely depended on the Ironwood Divine Spring that he took out. Nurturing a tiger will bring disaster. At this moment, Typhone had such a thought. Since coercion didn't work, Typhone decided to lure them with benefits. Swish. With a shake of his wrist, he took out 2 interspatial rings from his bosom. Shaking them, he said to Ningyu and Lin Lang, "There are 100 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring in here. As long as you inject your energy into the altar, I will give it to you unconditionally. I know you won't believe me." Typhone seemed to have guessed what Ningyu and Lin Lang were thinking. He continued, "I can make a heavenly oath and even sign a life and death contract." Hey! Hearing the life and death contract, Ningyu and Lin Lang were moved. A life and death contract could not be signed carelessly. Previously in Kuanshu City, the Shu family's ancestor was easily killed by Ningyu because he had signed a life and death contract. Now that Typhone wanted to sign a life and death contract, how could Ningyu not be surprised? Because once Typhone signed the life and death contract, he would have to give them 100 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. "What are you still thinking about?" Typhone said, "I can put the Ironwood Divine Spring here first. After you inject your energy into the altar, you can come and get it yourself." "That's a good choice." Ningyu looked at Lin Lang and said, "Why don't we think about it?" "Yes, we should think about it." Lin Lang nodded. Then, Lin Lang and Ningyu huddled together and whispered to each other. What the hell? Since Lin Lang and Ningyu had set up a soundproof formation, Typhone could not hear what they were talking about. After a while, Ningyu seemed to have come to an agreement with Lin Lang, and he said in a clear voice, "Bring 50 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring over first, and only then will we pour the energy within our bodies into the sacrificial altar. Otherwise, once the energy within our bodies is exhausted, wouldn't we be waiting to be slaughtered?" "Lambs?" "Sure." This was out of Ningyu and Lin Lang's expectations. Typhone did not refuse. He flicked his wrist and threw out the interspatial ring containing the Ironwood Divine Spring. Kai. The interspatial ring's speed was very fast, and the friction with the air made a kai-kai sound. In an instant, The interspatial ring arrived in front of Ningyu and Lin Lang. Be careful. At this moment, Ningyu suddenly realized that a cold light suddenly shot out from the interspatial ring and quickly attacked him. Chapter 2347. However, at this moment, Ningyu wanted to retreat, but it was obviously too late. Whoosh! Several cold lights shot out from the interspatial ring. In an instant, the cold lights intertwined and wrapped Ningyu and Rong Hao. Even Lin Lang, who was at the side, was unable to escape the demonic claws and was surrounded by several cold lights. Ha ha ha. Seeing Ningyu and Lin Lang being surrounded by the cold lights, Typhon could not help but laugh. In order to trap Ningyu and Lin Lang, he did not hesitate to use the Ironwood Divine Spring as bait. Originally, he thought that there was a possibility of failure, but when he saw Ningyu and Lin Lang being trapped with his own eyes, the stone in his heart was finally put down. Ningyu, Lin Lang, I gave you a chance, but you did not know how to cherish it. Since that's the case, I can only plant a seal in your bodies so that you have no choice but to listen to my orders. Typhon's lips curled up as he said, You too. Don't worry, I will only control your bodies and will not erase your consciousness. Is that so? Just as Typhon finished his words, an indifferent voice rang in his ears. Whoosh! Following the voice, he saw Ningyu playing with an interspatial ring as he said calmly, If you have the ability to erase my consciousness, I will naturally not mind. Ningyu's action caused Typhon to turn pale with fright. He quickly activated the seal on the interspatial ring and wanted to take it back. However, the seal on the interspatial ring had already been erased by Ningyu. It was too late for Typhon to take back the interspatial ring. Feeling that he had lost control of the interspatial ring, Typhon's pupils shrank and he even stuttered. Although there were not 100 sets of Ironwood Divine Spring in the interspatial ring, there were at least 20 set. Other than the Ironwood Divine Spring that he had given to Tai Muyu, he only had 20 set. Now that so much of the Ironwood Divine Spring had been obtained by Ningyu, Typhon felt like crying. Hand over the Ironwood Divine Spring. Taking a deep breath, Typhon forced himself to calm down. Although the Ironwood Divine Spring was obtained by Ningyu was also trapped in the array formation at the same time. The cold light array was extremely powerful. Even a pseudo half-step immortal king like him might not be able to escape if he was trapped inside. If I hand it over just because you ask me to, wouldn't I lose face? Ningyu shrugged his shoulders, then threw 9 portions to Lin Lang and 1 to Rong Hao. He said, Everyone who sees this has a share. I can't let you return empty-handed. Thank you. After receiving the Ironwood Divine Spring, Lin Lang thanked Ningyu. After all, the Ironwood Divine Spring was seized by Ningyu. Even if Ningyu did not hand over the Ironwood Divine Spring to him, he had nothing to say. I'm going to die of anger. I'm going to die of anger. Typhon was so angry that his nose was crooked. His original intention was to use the cold light array to control Ningyu and Lin Lang. But now, even his 20 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring had been divided up. Rise. The furious Typhon immediately activated the cold light array, trying to trap Ningyu and Lin Lang inside. Kai. The cold light array was activated, and countless rays of cold light covered the sky and attacked Ningyu and Lin Lang. Withdraw. However, Ningyu's face showed no signs of fear. He took out the red demon sword and controlled it to emit a terrifying devouring power. In an instant, the cold light that was attacking him was completely devoured. Swoosh. On the other side, Lin Lang also used his silver-white flying sword to devour the cold light that was attacking him. You guys. Seeing the cold light being devoured by Ningyu and Lin Lang, Typhon trembled all over. The plan had completely failed. Trash. Ironwood Fish saw everything that was happening on this side. If it was not for the fact that it was inconvenient for him to attack, he would have killed Typhon as well. Father. Typhon glared at Ningyu and Lin Lang, then leaped up and flew to the edge of the altar. You take charge of the altar for me. I'll go take care of them. Tai Muyu glared at Typhon, then slammed the altar with both hands and shot out. Swoosh! Tai Muyu was a real half-step immortal king. Although his body was unwell, his strength was greatly affected. His overall strength was still much stronger than Tai Feng's. In a one-on-one fight, even two Tai Fengs were not his match. You step back first. Seeing that Tai Muyu had personally attacked, Ningyu's face became extremely solemn. He pulled Rong Hao behind him and waved the red demon sword in his hand. Whoosh! Several rays of sword light attacked Tai Muyu. Child's play. Looking at the sword light attacking him, Tai Muyu opened his mouth and swallowed the sword light into his stomach under the horrified eyes of Ningyu and the others. This change was obviously out of Ningyu's expectation. Ningyu thought that he could rely on the sword light to slightly block Tai Muyu's steps. Who would have thought that it would be defeated in an instant? Let's attack together. Glancing at Lin Lang, Ningyu rose from the ground. He did not hesitate to mobilize the energy in his sea of consciousness, gathered it on his fist, and punched out with a backhand. As for Lin Lang, he was not idle either. He constantly waved the silver-white flying sword, slashing out several rays of sword light. The only difference between him and Ningyu was that Ningyu was wholeheartedly fighting against Tai Muyu. While Lin Lang was fighting against Tai Muyu, his eyes involuntarily looked at the entrance of the number 1 private room. Although Lin Lang's movements were hidden, Rong Hao saw it. Be careful of the entrance of the private room. Rong Hao did not think much and quickly used his unique voice transmission secret technique to inform Ningyu of the news. Crack. However, as soon as Rong Hao informed Ningyu, the door of the number 1 private room suddenly exploded. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The private room exploded, and several figures entered in a line. Oh no! Seeing the sudden influx of martial artists, Rong Hao's expression changed dramatically. The figures at the front were none other than Marvelous Mathematician, Thunder Elixir King, and Du Shibing. With the three of them leading the way, there were dozens of experts behind them. However, the cultivation of these experts was not at the peak of Lord Heaven, but the early stage Lord Heaven. Although their cultivation was only at the mid-stage Lord Heaven, Rong Hao did not dare to be careless. Because each of these people had a badge on their shoulders. On the badge, there were 2 big golden words. Tianlan. Obviously. They were from Tianlan Immortal Kingdom. Oh no. Tai Muyu was equally astonished. He did not have the time to fight against Ningyu. He quickly returned to the altar and gave an order to Tai Feng. Do your best to hold them off for half an hour. Understood. Tai Feng's expression was extremely unpleasant. Under normal circumstances, he could easily hold off Marvelous Mathematician and the others for 10 hours, let alone half an hour. But now, half an hour was extremely difficult for him. There was no other reason. Both Marvelous Mathematician and Thunder Elixir King had the same cultivation as him, Pseudo-Immortal King Realm. Chapter 2348. Tai Feng remembered it clearly. Previously, both the Godly Diviner and the Thunder Elixir King were at the peak of the Heavenly Lord realm. But now, he was very surprised that both the Godly Diviner and the Thunder Elixir King had become half-step immortal kings. But what truly shocked Tai Feng was not this, but Du Shibing's cultivation. Half-step immortal king. What did half-step immortal king mean? His father, Tai Muyu, had cultivated for many years before reaching half-step immortal king. What ability did Du Shibing possess to actually charge into the half-step immortal king realm in such a short period of time? Could it be he had already consumed an immortal king pill? The more Tai Feng thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. An immortal king pill was an immortal king level pill with extremely potent medicinal effects. If it was swallowed by some extremely talented martial artists, there was a great possibility that they could directly skip the half-step immortal king realm from the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm and advance to the real immortal king realm. Rong Hao, go into the Red Devil Sword first. Ningyu didn't care about the cultivation of Du Shibing and the others. He turned to Rong Hao and said. Although Rong Hao had reached the peak of the Heavenly Lord realm, his overall strength wasn't particularly strong. He could deal with ordinary martial artists, but against Godly Diviner and the others, not only would he be useless, he might even be a burden. Letting him enter the storage ring was the best choice. Swish. Roang Hao knew what he was capable of. He immediately dove into his storage ring and began to lie dormant there and then. How about it? Do you want to consider joining forces? Lin Lang's voice rang in Ning Yu's ears as soon as Roang Hao entered the storage ring. What do you think? Ning Yu rolled his eyes. He couldn't handle the current situation by himself. 3 forces. Tai Feng and Tai Muyu had many peak of the Heavenly Lord realm fighters. Godly Diviner and Du Shibing had many martial artists from the Endless Sky Celestial Kingdom. He and Lin Lang could barely be considered a force. The only thing Ning Yu wasn't sure about was how strong Lin Lang's combat strength was. Was he between Half-Step Immortal King and Half-Step Immortal King, or was he strong enough to fight Half-Step Immortal King? Let's wait and see. Lin Lang smiled and said, the real boss hasn't appeared yet. Boss? Ning Yu was slightly stunned and confused. How could there be any big shots? Could it be that Du Shibing, who was at the Half-Step Immortal King realm, couldn't be considered as a big shot? Let's wait and see. Lin Lang didn't answer Ning Yu's question. Instead, he said indifferently, it's not like Tai Feng doesn't have a way to deal with Du Shibing and the others. Rumble. As if to verify the accuracy of Lin Lang's words. With a flick of Tai Feng's wrist, a purple pouch appeared in his hand. Celestial King-level magic treasure, Immortal Trapping Pouch. In terms of grade, the Immortal Trapping Cloth Bag's grade was even higher than Ning Yu's disc. It had reached the terrifying peak of the intermediate Immortal King stage. You should know. Ning Yu's sky-reaching disc was merely a mid-stage Immortal King's magic treasure. Tai Feng, so many years have passed. I didn't expect you to still have the Immortal Trapping Cloth Bag. Du Shibing took a step forward and stared at Tai Feng. He said in a deep voice, you should know why I'm here today. Hand over the Immortal Trapping Cloth Bag and the energy in the altar to me. Maybe I'll be happy and let you go. Or else. Speaking of this. Du Shibing paused for a moment. Then, a terrifying aura suddenly emanated from his body and crazily pressed down on Tai Feng. Come out. Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from Du Shibing's body, Tai Feng shouted in a low voice. Whoosh. As Tai Feng's words fell. 4 figures dashed over from afar. The cultivation of these 4 martial artists were all at the peak of the Lord Heaven realm. They were only 1 step away from the pseudo-immortal king stage. Is this Tai Feng's trump card? Ning Yu's face was slightly serious. 4 martial artists at the peak of the Lord Heaven realm were enough to attract his attention. Because as long as these 4 martial artists were willing, they could advance to the pseudo-immortal king stage at any time. Rumble. As soon as the 4 martial artists landed next to Tai Feng, their aura increased again. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 4 auras soared into the sky. At this moment, their cultivation had advanced from the peak of the Lord Heaven realm to the pseudo-immortal king stage. Now, including him, there were 5 pseudo-immortal king stage experts on Tai Feng's side. As for Du Shibing's side, there were only the marvelous mathematician and the Thunder Pellet King. Of course, if Du Shibing, who was at the pseudo-immortal king stage, was included, the situation was different. Tai Feng, you should know very well that if I make a move, all of you will die. Du Shibing's expression was still the same. He did not panic because of the appearance of the 4 pseudo-immortal kings. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said indifferently, you will never be able to bridge the gap between pseudo-immortal kings and pseudo-immortal kings. The word bridge was uttered. Du Shibing rose from the ground, turned into a shadow, and dashed out. Du Shibing's speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was next to Tai Feng. All of you, attack. Tai Feng obviously did not want to face Du Shibing head-on. He grabbed the 2 pseudo-half-step immortal kings and threw them towards Du Shibing. Bang! Bang! As Du Shibing said, the gap between pseudo-immortal kings and pseudo-immortal kings was very big, so big that it was difficult to bridge. He casually threw out 2 punches. The 2 pseudo-half-step immortal kings who attacked him were sent flying and fell heavily on the ground. Damn it! Such a change made Tai Feng's face pale. He knew that Du Shibing was powerful, but he did not expect that he was powerful to this level. Two pseudo-half-step immortal kings were actually not his match. One could imagine. Even if he came forward, it would be difficult for him to be his opponent. His eyes turned. Taifeng said to Ningyu and Ningyu in a deep voice, "Ningyu, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As long as you kill Du Shibing for me, the previous enmity will be written off. It's not good for us to intervene in the fight between you for the time being." Ningyu waved his hand and said. Ningyu was not a hothead. Even if he used all his trump cards and might be able to block Du Shibing's attack, it was extremely stupid to fight with Du Shibing at this time. Damn it. Hearing Ningyu's refusal, Taifeng could not help but curse. The task given to him by Tai Mu Yu was to resist Du Shibing for about half an hour. With Du Shibing's powerful strength, it would be very difficult to resist for 10 minutes, let alone half an hour. You are Ningyu. However, Ningyu did not want to intervene, but Du Shibing took the initiative to come to him. He stared at Ningyu and said, "Half-step Heavenly Lord Realm Cultivation, I really don't know how Qian Lingkong was killed by you. How about this, you come over and kowtow to me a few times, then release your mind to let me control it, I can spare your life. Are you sure you are talking to me?" Chapter 2349. Humph. Du Shibing snorted coldly. "Don't be so shameless. I don't even need to use my full strength to deal with trash like you. I can easily kill you. Hee hee." Ningyu smiled, but did not answer Du Shibing. "Don't you know how to bluff? Bluffing doesn't cost anything anyway. Say as much as you can." Marvelous diviner. Du Shibing was so angry that his nose was crooked. This was intolerable. He turned to Marvelous Diviner and said, "Go and capture him, dead or alive." "Yes." Marvelous Diviner nodded. Previously on the streets of Violet City, he knew that he was no match for Ningyu, so he immediately returned to report to Du Shibing. But now, he had devoured 1/5 of the Immortal King elixirs, and his cultivation had already advanced to the pseudo-half-step Immortal King realm. At this time, he thought he could easily win against Ningyu. Swoosh. Master God Diviner's figure flickered as he charged toward Ningyu. "Do you need my help?" Lin Lang asked when he saw Marvelous Diviner charging toward Ningyu. "Yes." Ningyu nodded. "I'm no match for Marvelous Diviner, so I hope you can help me." Lin Lang did not expect Ningyu to say that, and he felt a little awkward. He was just being polite. He did not want to reveal his strength. "I've been suffering from a cold recently, so you should go and deal with Marvelous Diviner." Lin Lang quickly found a way out of this embarrassing situation. "You're the best." Ningyu gave him a thumbs up, and then he slashed at Marvelous Diviner with the red demon sword. Whoosh! In a split second, several sword rays shot out, covering the sky and earth, slashing toward Marvelous Diviner. Child's play. Marvelous Diviner did not seem to care about the sword rays. He clenched his fists and opened a path in front of him. Kai, Kai, Kai. The sword rays that Ningyu slashed out were shattered by Marvelous Diviner's fists. As for Marvelous Diviner, his path was unimpeded, and he rushed to the front of Ningyu. "In your next life," Master God Diviner said viciously, "there are some things that look behind you." Ningyu rolled his eyes and pointed behind Master God Diviner. "Trying to play tricks?" Master God Diviner's lips curled up into a sinister smile. "Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You want to take advantage of the moment I turn around to attack me? Ha ha ha. I have to say, you're very naive. I can believe it, but I absolutely won't. Fart." However, before Master God Diviner could finish his sentence, he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. At this critical moment, Master God Diviner hurriedly turned around. Pu. However, it was already too late for Master God Diviner to turn around. As soon as he turned around, he saw several sword rays speeding towards his head. "Impossible!" Master God Diviner exclaimed. He had already destroyed all the sword lights. Why did the sword gleams recombine? Nothing is impossible. Ningyu said calmly, "I've already warned you, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Don't blame me. While they were talking, Ningyu held the red demon sword and stabbed it at Master God Diviner's heart. Fart. With his heart pierced, Master God Diviner did not even have time to say anything before his body fell backward. At that moment, Master God Diviner, who was half a step to the immortal king realm, was killed. Whoosh. The sudden death of Master God Diviner caused everyone in the number 1 booth to turn pale, except for Du Shabing and the Thunder Pellet King. Even Typhoon was shocked. They could not have imagined it. Even someone as powerful as Master God Diviner was killed by Ningyu with ease. Was a half step to the Heavenly Lord realm martial artist really that powerful? Thunder Pellet King, Du Shabing's expression was extremely cold. He looked at the Thunder Pellet King and said in a deep voice, "Bring a few men with you and bring Ningyu to me." Understood. The Thunder Pellet King nodded heavily. In fact, if Ningyu could kill Master God Diviner, he could also kill him. However, he had to obey Du Shabing's request. Hence, he brought more than 10 mid-stage Heavenly Monarch realm experts from the Endless Sky Immortal Empire and rushed towards Ningyu. Devour. Ningyu did not turn around to look at the Thunder Pellet King and the others. After killing Master God Diviner, he squatted down and placed his palm on Master God Diviner's head. Fart. It only took 3 seconds. Master God Diviner's body withered, leaving only a piece of human skin. Rumble. As soon as Ningyu devoured Master God Diviner's human skin, Lin Lang and the Thunder Pellet King began to fight. In fact, Lin Lang did not plan to help Ningyu in the beginning. After all, the real battle had not begun. It was unwise to waste energy now. However, when he saw Ningyu devouring Master God Diviner, he changed his mind and decided to kill the Thunder Pellet King. Both Master God Diviner and the Thunder Pellet King were pseudo-half-step immortal kings. The energy in their bodies, treasures, and pills were countless. Instead of letting Ningyu take advantage of them, he might as well join in and grab some of them. Otherwise, when Ningyu killed the Thunder Pellet King, he wouldn't even be able to touch a hair. Rumble. Lin Lang wielded a silvery white flying sword and charged left and right. Not long after, the Thunder Pellet King and the other sky-billowing Immortal Kingdom martial artists were all killed. Only the Thunder Pellet King and Lin Lang were left on the battlefield. Damn it! The Thunder Pellet King took a few steps back and turned his head to look at the fallen sky-billowing Immortal Kingdom martial artists. His expression turned extremely ugly. Originally, he thought that Ningyu was very strong and took a great risk to kill Ningyu. Who would have thought? The young martial artist standing next to Ningyu was as strong as Ningyu. That's right. You deserve to die. Lin Lang shrugged and charged out again with the silvery white flying sword in his hand. Hua! In an instant, several sword lights separated from the silver-white flying sword and attacked the Thundercore Monarch all at once. Crack! In the nick of time. The Thunder Pellet King did not panic. Instead, he took out a pill and threw it into his mouth. Boom! The moment the pill entered his mouth, the Thunder Pellet King's aura soared again. Bang! 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 Along with a series of muffled sounds, the Thunder Pellet King's aura was close to a true half-step immortal king. At this rate, the Thunder Pellet King only needed a little more time and his aura would break through to the half-step immortal king realm. However, at this moment, a shadow flashed past Lin Lang and appeared in front of the Thunder Pellet King in the blink of an eye. Puff! The shadow suddenly punched out with his right hand and hit the Thunder Pellet King's head. What the F***CK? Seeing the Thunder Pellet King's miserable state, Lin Lang could not help but curse. The reason why he attacked was because he wanted the Thunder Pellet King's treasures, pills, and the energy in his body. But now, Ningyu attacked and killed the Thunder Pellet King while he was raising his aura. The Thunder Pellet King's treasures, pills, and energy all fell into Ningyu's hand. Don't be nervous. Chapter 2350. At least you know what's good for you. Lin Lang rolled his eyes at Ningyu. Immediately, he unleashed the terrifying devouring power within his body and started to devour the Thunder Pill King. Kai. Just like Ningyu. In just 3 seconds, the Thunder Pellet King was devoured into a piece of human skin. Swoosh. After the skin was devoured, a spatial ring fell to the ground. The Thunder Pellet King reacted quickly and caught the ring before it fell to the ground. Not bad. Lin Lang used his perception to probe the contents of the ring and nodded in satisfaction. The Thunder Pellet King lived up to his name. There were hundreds of elixirs in the ring. Although they weren't Immortal King grade, most of them were peak Heavenly Monarch grade. I can use them to break through to the half-step Immortal King realm. The dissatisfaction towards Ningyu in Lin Lang's mind was completely swept away. He had been looking for resources to break through to the half-step Immortal King realm before entering the Immortal Court. After all, the Immortal Court was a dangerous place. He would die a horrible death if he wasn't careful. As long as he could break through to the half-step Immortal King realm, he could live a carefree life in the Immortal Court. Du Shibing, are the 2 helpers I hired at a high price okay? Tai Feng was the most excited about the death of the Thunder Pellet King and marvelous mathematician. He smirked and said to Du Shibing, I'm afraid even you won't be able to handle Ningyu and Lin Lang together. Du Shibing tried his best to stay calm. He had just reached the half-step Immortal King realm, so the immortal chi in his body wasn't stable. In other words, his overall combat strength was only slightly stronger than a pseudo half-step Immortal King. Otherwise, he could defeat Ningyu and Lin Lang on his own without the help of marvelous mathematician and Thunder Pellet King. We don't want to get involved in your fight for now. How could Ningyu not know what Tai Feng was thinking? He was using him and Lin Lang as a shield to stop Du Shibing. Ningyu didn't want to help others. He waved his hand and said, without our participation, Tai Feng will be easily defeated, or even killed. Tai Feng's face turned extremely cold. He wanted Du Shibing and Ningyu to fight, but Ningyu actually chose to stay neutral. What about you? Ningyu pursed his lips and said, you just said that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We're already doing you a great favor by not joining hands with Du Shibing. Don't tell me you want us to join hands with Du Shibing to deal with you. Why are you talking nonsense with him? Let's watch the show first. Lin Lang retreated to an empty space behind him and started fiddling with the Thunder Pellet King's spatial ring. Hey, give me some pills. Don't think about eating them all by yourself. Ningyu was very dissatisfied with Lin Lang, muttering as he walked towards him. Sure. Du Shibing glanced at Ningyu and Lin Lang before walking towards Tai Feng. Du Shibing might be walking slowly, but the pressure he gave Tai Feng was very strong. Because no matter what, Du Shibing was also a half-step Immortal King, while Tai Feng was just a fake half-step Immortal King. Damn it. All of you, go. Seeing Du Shibing walking towards him, Tai Feng hurriedly shouted, I'll give anyone who can touch Du Shibing a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring. Boom. Tai Feng's words moved the martial artists at the peak of the Heavenly Monarch realm at the edge of the altar. With a great reward, there would always be a brave man. If Tai Feng asked them to kill Du Shibing, they naturally didn't have the ability to do so. But now that they only met Du Shibing, they were confident. After all, their cultivation was at the peak of the Heavenly Monarch realm, which was not much different from Du Shibing. If he just touched it, the danger should be very low. Whoosh. Only a few martial artists at the peak of the Heavenly Monarch realm responded to Tai Feng's first order. But this time, there were more than a dozen martial artists at the peak of the Heavenly Monarch realm who attacked Du Shibing. Heaven's sins can be forgiven, but one's own sins cannot be forgiven. Du Shibing snorted coldly. Immediately, the immortal chi in his body wrapped around his fist, and he increased his speed to the limit. Bang! 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 A series of crisp and clear sounds rang out. More than a dozen martial artists at the peak of the Heavenly Monarch realm were all defeated by Du Shibing and fell heavily to the ground. Some of the weaker martial artists died on the spot. Even the few that survived had weak auras and were on the brink of death. For a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring, these people really didn't care about their lives. Tai Feng, I'll give you a chance to live. Du Shibing casually killed these trash blocking his way and looked at Tai Feng quietly. He said, submit to me, and I can promise you the position of the great general of the Heavenly Kingdom. Fart. Tai Feng spat out a mouthful of saliva and said coldly, sooner or later, I will kill my way to the soaring sky immortal empire and kill everyone there. You are determined to go against the Imperial Advisor, aren't you? Du Shibing said in a deep voice. Imperial Advisor? Ha ha ha. Tai Feng threw his head back and laughed maniacally. After laughing, Tai Feng changed the topic and shouted coldly, when my father recovers, it will be the time of Du Shida's death. Is that so? However, just as Tai Feng's voice fell, an indifferent voice rang in his ears. Swoosh. Hearing this, Tai Feng's expression changed drastically. Du Shida. Obviously, the person who spoke was the Imperial Advisor of the Heavenly Kingdom, Du Shida. Like Tai Muyu, Du Shida's cultivation was a genuine half-step immortal king. However, Du Shida was not injured and was in his peak condition. In this case, once Du Shida came to the number 1 private room, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sneaky bastard, come out if you dare. Tai Feng forced himself to calm down and said, a clown that only knows how to hide in the dark. He can't even show himself. As you wish. Catcher. The void trembled. Then, a grey-robed old man slowly appeared in front of everyone. Immortal King? The moment they saw the old man in grey, Ning Yu's and Lin Lang's expressions changed dramatically. According to their observation, the aura emitted by the old man in grey seemed to have touched the threshold of Immortal King. At this moment, there was only one thought in their minds. They wanted to confirm whether the old man in grey was a real Immortal King. If the old man in grey was an Immortal King, they would definitely retreat immediately without hesitation. Because against an Immortal King, even if the Immortal King suppressed his aura to the half-step Immortal King realm, they had no chance of winning. Not an Immortal King. Soon, Ning Yu received Ning Lu's voice transmission from the Red Devil Sword. Ning Lu was the World Tree. As his cultivation increased, he had more memories in his mind. According to his judgment, the old man in grey was not a real Immortal King, but a half-step Immortal King. He was only half a step away from the Immortal King realm. In other words, the old man in grey's current strength had reached the limit that this continent could bear. If he was any stronger, the space of this continent would completely shatter. Generally speaking, a powerful martial artist like the old man in grey would not leave the Immortal Court unless there was something very important. Chapter 2351. Du Shida. Seeing the old man's face, Tai Feng said word by word. National Advisor. Du Shibing's reaction was different from Tai Feng's. After Du Shida came out, his face was filled with ecstasy as he hurriedly said. Although Du Shida was his uncle, he would still address Du Shida as state preceptor. Yes. Du Shida just nodded at Du Shibing and then walked towards the altar step by step. Swish. Seeing Du Shida's direction, Tai Feng immediately jumped up and blocked in front of him. Get lost. Du Shida casually waved a fist. Not good. Facing Du Shida's attack, Tai Feng did not dare to be careless. He quickly gathered the immortal chi in his body on his fist and hit Du Shida's fist with a backhand. Crack. The two collided. Du Shida continued to move forward. On the other hand, Tai Feng flew straight to the side. Without caring about Tai Feng's life or death, Du Shibing stopped 10 meters away from the altar. Tai Muyu, the grievances between us can be settled today. Looking at the Tai Muyu on the altar, Du Shibing said lightly. Sigh. On the altar. Tai Muyu opened his eyes, sighed, and said, what will come will come. I originally thought I could use the formation around the number 1 box to stop you for a while, but who would have thought that you have already reached a profound level and your strength has improved greatly. Soon, you will break the formation. Well, it's time to settle things. Swish. While talking, the Tai Muyu opened his mouth and swallowed all the liquid in the altar. Kai kai kai. Even. Those martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven who were pouring energy into the altar were not spared. The Tai Muyu's swallowing power was extremely strong. These martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven were swallowed before they could react. Why bother? Du Shida said calmly, as long as you give me the mother spring of the Ironwood Divine Spring, I can spare your Ironwood family. If you want the mother spring, it depends on whether you have the ability. Tai Muyu shook his wrist and took out a golden jade bottle from his bosom. There wasn't much liquid in the jade bottle, but even Ning Yu and Lin Lang could sense the terrifying aura emanating from it. Here comes the highlight. Lin Lang took a deep breath, turned his head and said to Ning Yu, "Listen to my command later. Use all your trump cards and snatch the mother spring from the ironwood fish." What is the mother spring? Ning Yu was puzzled. The so-called mother spring is the essence of the ironwood divine spring. Lin Lang explained, the ironwood divine spring that we obtained from Typhone was only diluted. To put it simply, the mother spring in Tai Muyu's hands is equivalent to 10%. Tens of thousands of portions of ironwood divine spring, hiss. Upon hearing Lin Lang's explanation, Ning Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. Tens of thousands of copies? Could it be that exaggerated? One had to know that a portion of ironwood divine spring was enough for an ordinary heaven monarch martial artist to increase by 1 rank. If the mother spring was so terrifying, wouldn't it be even more terrifying than the immortal king elixir? After snatching the mother spring, we will each get a portion. Ignoring Ning Yu's shock, Lin Lang continued, "Don't hold back. Even if you only get half of the mother spring, it will be enough for you to break through to the immortal king realm." Why didn't the ironwood fish break through to the immortal king realm? Ning Yu frowned. Logically, with the mother spring in the hands of the ironwood fish, there was no reason for him not to break through to the immortal king realm. The people of the ironwood family cannot use the ironwood divine spring. In order to get Ning Yu's help, Lin Lang had to explain again, "Anyway, remember this. You only have the mother spring in your eyes. Other things have nothing to do with you." "I know." Ning Yu nodded. Lin Lang said it so seriously. He more or less understood how precious the mother spring was. Boom. While Ning Yu was still talking to Lin Lang, the ironwood fish was already fighting with Du Shida. Rumble. Not only were the ironwood fish and Du Shida fighting, but Typhone and Du Shibing were also fighting. Although Typhone was injured by Du Shida, Typhone did not hesitate to burn his blood essence to increase his strength, forcing a draw with Du Shibing. Supreme Box 1. 2 battlefields. Typhone and Du Shibing were evenly matched. In a short period of time, no one could do anything to the other. As for the ironwood fish and Du Shida, it was a one-sided fight. Du Shida had the absolute upper hand. As the battle progressed, the ironwood fish's situation became more and more dangerous. In the end, even the aura of his body began to decline. "Do I have to use that move after all?" Seeing that he was about to be defeated by Du Shida, the ironwood fish's face showed a look of unwillingness. The ironwood family had a secret technique that could instantly increase one's combat power by several times. But the price was very high. Every time he used the secret technique, he needed hundreds of years, or even tens of thousands of years to recover. Fight. Looking at the fierce battle between Typhone and Du Shibing, the ironwood fish gritted his teeth, took out a white pill, and threw it into his mouth. Crack. As the pill entered his stomach, an extremely terrifying aura emitted from the ironwood fish's body. Not good. Du Shida was not a stupid person. Back then, when the immortal king of the Endless Sky Celestial Kingdom fought against the immortal king of the Ironwood race, the immortal king of the Ironwood race had an absolute advantage. However, the immortal king of the Ironwood race used this move and eventually perished together with the immortal king of the Endless Sky Celestial Kingdom. Although Du Shida had expected this situation when he came here, he was still a little nervous when it really happened. Taking a deep breath, Du Shida took out a few fist-sized black beads. "Go!" With a low shout, the black beads flew straight towards the ironwood fish. Boom! When the black beads approached the ironwood fish, they suddenly exploded. The terrifying shockwave of the explosion covered the sky and suppressed the iron-wooden fish. Block. The ironwood fish's face was expressionless. Energy emerged from his body, forming a protective shield around his body. Kai kai kai. Countless shockwaves from the explosions continuously battered the energy shield. If this situation continued, it would not be long before the protective shield in front of the ironwood fish was reopened. Boom boom boom. As it turned out, Du Shida's preparation was useless. Before the black beads broke the protective shield in front of the ironwood fish, the ironwood fish's aura began to soar rapidly. In a short period of time, the ironwood fish's aura had recovered to the half-step immortal king realm, and it had reached the limit that this continent could bear. In other words, the ironwood fish's current strength was equivalent to Dushida's. Dushida wanted to rely on pure strength to defeat the ironwood fish. It was almost a fool's dream. All the people of the sky-endless celestial kingdom should die. The ironwood fish looked coldly at Dushida and said coldly, "After I kill you, I will go to the sky-endless celestial kingdom and kill them all." Not good. The ironwood fish's face changed dramatically halfway through his cold words. Bang! A cold light swept out from the void in front of him and hit his wrist. Swish! All of a sudden. Chapter 2352. Swoosh. The sudden change caused Tai Muyu's expression to change drastically. The mother spring of the ironwood divine spring was the key to opening a secret realm in the immortal court. Once it was lost, he would lose control of that secret realm. So, without another word, Ironwooden Fish immediately gave up on attacking Dushida and turned to chase after the golden jade bottle. "Your opponent is me." However, before Tai Muyu could take a few steps, he was blocked by Dushida. Dushida did not waste words with Tai Muyu. He immediately gathered energy on his fist and punched out. Damn it! Helpless. Tai Muyu could only temporarily give up on chasing the golden jade bottle and chose to meet Dushida's fist. Bang! The two fists collided. Dushida and Tai Muyu both retreated a few steps before stopping. At this moment, the distance between them and the golden jade bottle was exactly the same. They stopped fighting and stood on the spot, staring at the golden jade bottle. No one made the first move, because they were very clear. Whoever snatched the golden jade bottle first would be attacked from behind by the other person. At this moment, the situation became a stalemate. Attack. While Tai Muyu and Dushida were in a stalemate, Lin Lang did not stay idle. He first shouted at Ningyu, then his body flashed and rushed towards the golden bottle. Swoosh! Swoosh! Seeing Lin Lang rush out, Ningyu immediately followed. His speed was not any slower than Lin Lang's. Damn it! Ningyu and Lin Lang's attack caused Dushida and Tai Muyu's expressions to turn ugly. The two of them were fighting for the golden bottle, but Ningyu and Lin Lang actually wanted to stop them. This was intolerable. The enraged Tai Muyu and Dushida seemed to form a united front and both rushed out. Their target was clear. Even if they could not get the golden bottle, they could not let Ningyu and Lin Lang get it. I will stop them. Turning his head to look at Dushida and the iron-wooden fish who were chasing after him, Lin Lang clenched his teeth and hurriedly transmitted his voice to Dushida. "You must snatch the mother spring, then leave at all costs. I will think of a way to find you." Rumble. After giving the instructions, Lin Lang took out hundreds of talismans from his bosom. Kai Kai. He channeled his immortal energy into the talisman. Voila! With a flick of his wrist, hundreds of talismans appeared in front of the ironwood fish and Dushida. Explode! Following Lin Lang's low shout, hundreds of talismans exploded at once. Rumble! The shockwave produced by the explosion of the talisman was extremely powerful. Not only were Tai Muyu and Dushida affected, even Taifeng and Du Shibing were greatly affected. While Tai Muyu and the others were fighting against the after-effects of the talisman's explosion, Ningyu reacted quickly and held the golden bottle firmly in his hand. Sky-reaching disc. After obtaining the golden bottle, Ningyu immediately took out the sky-reaching disc and threw it into the air. Ka. The sky-reaching disc spun rapidly. Furthermore, it was getting faster and faster. 1 second later, the void around the sky-reaching disc suddenly split open, and a gap appeared in front of Ningyu. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Ningyu immediately entered the space crack. Swish. As soon as Ningyu stepped into the spatial rift, the sky-reaching disc under his feet also disappeared. As for the space crack, it completely closed not long after Ningyu and the sky-reaching disc disappeared. In the distance, Tai Muyu and Dushida could not help but roar angrily when they saw the crack closing. Losing the mother spring of the ironwood divine spring meant that they could not open the secret realm and lose control of it. This loss was greater than the heavens. Chase. Taimuyu and Dushida looked at each other and immediately formed a short-term cooperation to chase after Ningyu. One had to know. In that secret realm, there was the divine liquid necessary to break through to the immortal king realm. Without the divine liquid, no matter how talented one was, no matter how many immortal king elixirs he swallowed, he could not advance to the immortal king realm. Now that the mother spring was taken away by Ningyu, how could Taimuyu and Dushida not be angry? At the same time, they had not lost their minds. Even if Ningyu took away the mother spring, he should not be able to refine it in a short period of time. As long as they could catch up to Ningyu, they would definitely be able to snatch the mother spring back. Swish. Ningyu did not know what Taimuyu and Dushida were thinking. In order to increase the distance between them, Ningyu did not hesitate to burn his blood essence to increase his speed. With the support of the sky-reaching disc, in addition to Ningyu burning some of the mother spring of the ironwood divine spring, the speed of the sky-reaching disc reached its limit. Very soon, Ningyu pulled away from Taimuyu and Dushida. Moreover, according to the speed of Taimuyu and Dushida, they might not be able to catch up even after 3 days. Phew. Sitting cross-legged on the sky-reaching disc, Ningyu could not help but let out a long sigh. To be honest, the first time he saw Taimuyu and Dushida display the strength of a half-step immortal king, Ningyu's heart collapsed. Although his strength was comparable to a half-step immortal king, Taimuyu and Dushida had reached the peak of a half-step immortal king, which was the limit that this continent could bear. Now it was good. With the help of the sky-reaching disc and the mother spring of the ironwood divine spring, he had a certain distance from Taimuyu and the others. With a flick of his wrist, Ningyu sat on the sky-reaching disc and took out the golden bottle. Looking up and down at the golden bottle, Ningyu was secretly surprised. The fact that the golden bottle could contain the mother spring was enough to show that it was extraordinary. According to Ningyu's preliminary observation, the level of this golden bottle had also reached the terrifying Immortal King level. An Immortal King level magic treasure. However, the golden bottle was an early Immortal King level magic treasure, while the sky-reaching disc was an intermediate Immortal King level magic treasure. Why don't I break through to the Lord of Heaven realm now? Ningyu gritted his teeth and immediately opened the golden bottle, pouring out a quarter of the mother spring inside. Gulp. He did not think much about it. Ningyu opened his mouth and poured a quarter of the mother spring into his mouth. The mother spring flowed down his throat and into Ningyu's stomach. As soon as the mother spring entered his stomach, Ningyu immediately activated his spell and began to cultivate. Boom. Originally, the energy in Ningyu's sea of consciousness was very large, enough for him to easily break through to the heavenly monarch realm. Now that he added a quarter of the mother spring, in an instant, Ningyu could not suppress the energy in his sea of consciousness, causing it to completely explode. Whoosh. In an instant, the void trembled, and a black mass of tribulation clouds appeared. The heavenly monarch tribulation. At this time, Ningyu's heavenly monarch tribulation had officially arrived. Rong Tianjun, take care of them for me first. Ningyu let Rong Tianjun out of the red demon sword, and handed over the storage ring, the sky-reaching disc, and everything else on him, except for the remaining 3/4 of the mother spring, to Rong Tianjun for safekeeping. Ningyu planned to rely on his physical strength to overcome the heavenly monarch tribulation, without any external help. This was because the tribulation clouds of the heavenly monarch tribulation were a kind of tempering for the god of war body. If Ningyu could successfully overcome the tribulation clouds of the heavenly monarch tribulation, then his god of war body would be close to perfection. Swish. Chapter 2353. Good timing. Ningyu raised his head and looked at the tribulation cloud that was rushing towards him. With a loud shout, he stomped his feet on the ground and charged forward instead of retreating. Boom. In an instant, the thick tribulation cloud smashed onto Ningyu's body. A heart-wrenching pain swept through Ningyu's body. Enduring the pain coming from his body, Ningyu unleashed his war god physique to the extreme and charged into the tribulation clouds again. Whoosh! Ning-yu seemed to have angered the tribulation cloud. Hundreds of tribulation clouds were all rushing towards Ning-yu. Each tribulation cloud was like a whip, lashing at Ning-yu's body. Pa, 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 all kinds of slapping sounds could be heard continuously. Master, can Ning-yu really pass the tribulation of Heavenly Lord? In the distance, Ning-lu, the Dark Emperor, the double-horned demonic beast, the Red Fiend and the others all came out of the Red Fiend sword. The double-horned demonic beast looked at Ning-yu, who was struggling in the tribulation cloud, and said hesitantly, "I'm not very sure." Rong-hao shook his head and said, "Ning-yu's tribulation of Heavenly Lord is several times stronger than mine. Several times stronger than yours." Hearing Rong-hao's words, the Dark Emperor exclaimed. Who was Rong-hao? The experts of the Celestial Court were extremely powerful. Ning-yu's tribulation of Heavenly Lord was several times stronger than his. Strictly speaking, it should be several times stronger than all the tribulation of Heavenly Lord I have seen, Rong-hao said in a deep voice. Hiss. This time. Except for the Dark Emperor, even Ning-lu and the Red Fiend, who were calm, gasped. They had seen Ning-yu go through the tribulation many times. Every time, Ning-yu would get through it unscathed. However, the tribulation of Heavenly Lord was different from the ordinary tribulation cloud. That was because passing through the Heavenly Lord tribulation was equivalent to being on par with the Heavenly Way and having the opportunity to touch the threshold of the Heavenly Way. Ning-yu did not know about the conversation between the Dark Emperor and Rong-hao. Oh my god. It really hurts. Ning-yu couldn't help but curse as he was bombarded by countless tribulation clouds. Although the God of War body was strong, this was the Heavenly Lord tribulation. Strictly speaking. Fortunately, Ning-yu had swallowed a quarter of the Wood Divine Spring Mother Spring. Otherwise, just the impact of this tribulation cloud would have been enough to kill him. The first round of tribulation clouds quickly dissipated. Hua! After the tribulation cloud disappeared, Ning-yu's figure flashed and fell to the ground from midair. Gulp! Without another word, Ning-yu once again swallowed a quarter of the Mother Spring. After swallowing the Mother Spring, Ning-yu immediately sat down cross-legged. He wanted to use the little time he had to recuperate and recover to his peak condition. Rumble. However, as soon as Ning-yu sat down, the tribulation clouds in the sky came crashing down. Damn it! Cursing in his heart, Ning-yu had no choice but to rush out again and use his body to withstand the impact of the second round of tribulation clouds. Fortunately, the effect of the Ironwood Divine Spring Mother Spring was extremely overbearing. A quarter of the Mother Spring only took a second to allow Ning-yu to recover to his peak condition. Bang bang bang! The power of the second round of tribulation clouds was much stronger than the first round. Fut fut fut! Under the impact of this round of tribulation clouds, Ning-yu even spat out a few mouthfuls of dark red blood, and the aura of his body began to drop sharply. Swallow again. At this critical moment, Ning-yu couldn't care less. He once again swallowed a quarter of the Mother Spring. After swallowing the Mother Spring, Ning-yu's aura soared once again. Not long after, the second round of tribulation clouds dissipated. Next, the third round of tribulation clouds, the fourth round of tribulation clouds, all the way to the ninth round of tribulation clouds, all came crashing down. In order to withstand the 9 rounds of tribulation clouds, Ning-yu did not hesitate to swallow the entire Mother Spring, and the energy in his sea of consciousness was completely exhausted. Ning-yu even burned his blood essence to increase his strength, and finally withstood the impact of the 9 rounds of tribulation clouds. Whoosh! After the 9th round of tribulation clouds dissipated, Ning-yu let out a long breath, thinking that it was a close shave. Fortunately, there was the Ironwood Divine Spring Mother Spring, and the huge amount of energy stored in his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, it was almost impossible for him to withstand the impact of the 9 rounds of tribulation clouds. Boom! The Heavenly Lord tribulation had always been wave after wave. The 9 rounds of tribulation clouds disappeared. The 10th round, which was also the last round of tribulation clouds, suddenly descended. Is this the last one? Ning-yu looked up at the tribulation clouds rushing towards him, and his face became extremely solemn. The last tribulation cloud was not big, on the contrary, it was only as thick as an arm. But Ningyu knew better than anyone else. Even an expert half a step to the immortal king level would find it difficult to withstand its attack. Crack. Ningyu did not think much about it. He stomped on the ground, and suddenly a huge crack appeared on the ground. As for Ningyu's body, it shot out rapidly. Seeing that Ningyu was going to fight the last tribulation cloud, Rong Hao, Ninglu, the Dark Emperor, and the others all looked at the sky, and no one moved their eyes. Swish, swish, swish. However, at this moment, the space in the distance suddenly split open, and several figures rushed straight here. Oh no! Seeing them, Rong Hao's face changed dramatically. There were a total of 4 people, and Rong Hao was very familiar with each of them. The 2 in front were Tai Muyu and Du Shida. The 2 behind were Tai Feng and Du Shibing. There he is. When Tai Muyu and Du Shida saw Ningyu in the air, they both looked ecstatic. In order to catch up with Ningyu, they did not hesitate to burn their blood essence and use all their trump cards to increase their speed. But even so, it still took them several hours to catch up with Ningyu. No, he is going through a tribulation. Tai Muyu was just about to rush to Ningyu, but he hurriedly stopped, and his face changed slightly. Is it the great tribulation of the immortal king? Du Shida also stopped. However, Du Shida's expression was very exaggerated. Because he found that the tribulation cloud Ningyu was facing was extremely powerful, so powerful that even he was not sure that he could resist it. He was a half-step immortal king. The tribulation cloud that even he could not resist could only be produced by the great tribulation of the immortal king level. I don't care what tribulation he is going through. Anyway, he stole my mother spring, so he must return it to me. Tai Muyu's face was cold, and his eyes instantly moved to Rong Hao and Ninglu. Swish. He did not say much. Tai Muyu and Du Shida looked at each other, and then immediately rushed out, trying to catch Rong Hao and the others. Go. At the critical moment, a huge palm appeared, suddenly grabbed Rong Hao and the others, and flew backward. Explode. As soon as the huge palm retreated, thousands of talismans exploded. With so many talismans exploding, the shockwave was no less powerful than the one in the Supreme No. 1 box. Damn it! The sudden change made Tai Muyu and Du Shida curse silently, and hurriedly retreat. They were not hotheads. These talismans were all immortal king talismans. When a single one exploded, the power might be limited. But with so many exploding at the same time, even if they were half-step immortal kings, they did not dare to say that they could resist 100% of it. What the hell is Ningyu doing? Why didn't he leave, but is going through the tribulation here? On the other side, the huge palm put Rong Hao and the others down, and a figure appeared. Lin Lang. Obviously, it was Lin Lang who saved Rong Hao and the others at the moment of danger. Chapter 2354. Mother Spring. Hearing Lin Lang's words, Rong Hao was slightly startled. Obviously, he did not know what the Mother Spring was. Previously, when Lin Lang mentioned the Ironwood Divine Spring to Ningyu, he had already entered the Red Demon Sword. Therefore, he knew nothing about the Mother Spring. Didn't Ningyu tell you? Rong Hao's action made Lin Lang frown. He had desperately tried to stop Tai Muyu and Du Shida in order to get half of the Mother Spring. If not for the Mother Spring, he would not have used so many talismans. Even he had used thousands of talismans to save Rong Hao and the others. With so many talismans, if he could not get the Mother Spring, he probably would not even have tears to cry. One had to know. He had used up all of his trump cards in his 2 powerful attacks. Lin Lang. Tai Muyu's face was extremely cold. He knew that he could not interfere with Ningyu's Lord of Heaven tribulation and could only wait for Ningyu to finish. However, Ningyu's friends were different. If he could capture Ningyu's friend before Ningyu successfully transcended the heavenly tribulation, then even if Ningyu successfully transcended the heavenly tribulation, he would still have the absolute initiative and make Ningyu hesitate to take action. But now, Lin Lang's interference made him very angry. I will settle the score with you later. Lin Lang glared at Rong Hao and immediately turned to look at Tai Muyu, saying coldly, "They are people I want to protect. Before you touch them, you better consider withstanding my talisman attack." While speaking, Lin Lang's palm reached into his bosom and was about to take out a talisman. Swish, 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 swish. Lin Lang's action directly caused Tai Muyu, Du Shida, Tai Feng, and Du Shibing to retreat. Lin Lang's cultivation was not strong, only at the peak of Lord of Heaven, but he had a lot of talismans. At this time, Tai Muyu and Du Shida did not want to fight Lin Lang first. For a moment, the scene became quiet. Lin Lang stood in front of Rong Hao and the others, his arms crossed as he stared at Ningyu, who was undergoing his tribulation in midair. In fact, at this time, Lin Lang really hoped that Ningyu could successfully transcend the tribulation. After all, the Mother Spring was the most important. He was also a member of the Immortal Court. In order to obtain the Mother Spring, he even acted as a spy and was recruited by Tai Feng. Now that the opportunity was right in front of him, he did not want to give it up. But Lin Lang was also very clear. Whether or not he could obtain the Mother Spring depended entirely on Ningyu. In other words, it all depended on whether Ningyu had exhausted the Mother Spring. Puff. Ningyu did not know about the worries in Lin Lang's heart. At this moment, his body had forcefully withstood the last tribulation cloud, and his internal organs had suffered a great impact. At the final stage of the heavenly monarch tribulation, what was really tested was not the strength of the body, but the willpower. If Ningyu could hold on for another 3 minutes, his tribulation of Lord of Heaven would end, and he would be able to enjoy the fruits of victory. But if he couldn't hold on for more than 3 minutes, he would be severely injured and half of his body would be paralyzed. In the worst case, he would be blasted into smithereens on the spot. Drip, drip. Time passed. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, 1 minute had passed. Fart. In midair, Ningyu forcefully endured the pain from his body and vomited a large mouthful of blood. 2 more minutes. Ningyu clenched his teeth and persevered. Crack, crack. The second minute. Ningyu paid the price of 2 broken ribs. The third minute. Ningyu's entire mental state had fallen to the bottom. Boom. When the 4th minute arrived, the tribulation cloud in mid-air suddenly dissipated, and what replaced it was a giant golden bronze cauldron. Swish. Ningyu did not have any hesitation. He immediately used his speed to the extreme and jumped into the bronze cauldron. Kai kai kai. As soon as Ningyu jumped into the bronze cauldron, the heavenly tribulation liquid in it continuously entered his body. Crack, crack, crack. Ningyu's broken ribs and the injuries of his internal organs were also healing at an extremely terrifying speed. In a short second. Not only did Ningyu repair his broken ribs, but even his 5 viscera and 6 bowels had completed the transformation. Boom. Furthermore, with the absorption of the heavenly tribulation liquid, Ningyu's aura was also increasing rapidly. Originally, even if he passed the heavenly monarch tribulation, his cultivation was only at the early stage of heavenly monarch. However, his heavenly tribulation liquid was extremely terrifying, and the energy it contained was even comparable to the ironwood divine spring. Under such circumstances, his cultivation advanced to the middle stage of heavenly monarch almost effortlessly. And he was even advancing to the late stage of heavenly monarch. Swish, swish. However, just as Ningyu was about to break through to the late stage of heavenly monarch, his expression suddenly changed slightly. This was because his keen perception had discovered that 2 figures were speeding towards him. No. To be precise, it should be 3 figures. Behind the 2 figures at the front, there was a young man. Red Fiend Sword. Ningyu suddenly flew out of the bronze cauldron and shouted. Swish. The Red Fiend understood and immediately drilled into the Red Fiend Sword, controlling the Red Fiend Sword to fly in front of Ningyu. Pa. Ningyu's eyes and hands were sharp, and he firmly grabbed the Red Fiend Sword. All of you, get in. With a low shout, Ningyu inserted the Red Fiend Sword into the bronze cauldron. Splash. With the emergence of the Red Fiend Sword suction, the heavenly tribulation liquid in the bronze cauldron was entering the Red Fiend Sword at a terrifying speed. Very soon. All the heavenly tribulation liquid in the bronze cauldron entered the red fiend sword. Crack! The heavenly tribulation liquid disappeared, and the bronze cauldron seemed to feel that its mission was completed. It instantly drilled into the void and disappeared. At this moment, Iron Muyu and Du Shida rushed over, and each of them threw a punch at Ningyu's head. This punch, Iron Muyu and Du Shida seemed to have formed a tacit understanding, and did not use their full strength. After all, the mother spring was with Ningyu. If they used their full strength and caused the mother spring to fall, they probably would not even have tears to cry. However, their actions gave Ningyu many opportunities. The immortal chi in his body was injected into his fists, and Ningyu threw out 2 punches. His left fist hit Du Shida, and his right fist hit Iron Muyu. Leave the mother spring to me first. Seeing Ningyu's savage actions, Lin Lang, who was chasing from behind, shouted. Lin Lang was so angry that his face turned green. Why was Ningyu pretending to be a big shot? He had clearly just advanced to the Heavenly Monarch realm. Even if he jumped 2 levels and reached the middle stage Heavenly Monarch realm, his opponent was a half-step Immortal King realm expert. Lin Lang was very confident in his own strength. But as strong as he was, if he did not use his trump card, it would be very difficult to fight against a half-step Immortal King realm expert. Moreover, Iron Muyu and Du Shida were not ordinary half-step Immortal Kings. The strength of each of them had reached the limit of the limit. Unless they encountered a real Immortal King, otherwise, they could do whatever they wanted. Bang! Bang! While Lin Lang was worried about Ningyu, Ningyu was fighting with Iron Muyu and Du Shida. 2 crisp sounds rang out consecutively. Soon after, 2 figures were sent flying backwards. What? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.